Alberta. Let's go. Free Alberta. Let's go. Free Alberta. Let's go, 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 go. Free Alberta. Free Alberta. Let's go. Free Alberta. Control and propaganda, lies and propaganda, corruption and propaganda, lies and propaganda, corruption and propaganda, lies and propaganda, control and propaganda, corruption and propaganda, lies and propaganda, control 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 and propaganda, lies and propaganda, corruption and propaganda, control and propaganda, corruption and propaganda, control and propaganda, corruption and propaganda, 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 corruption and propaganda, lies and 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 propaganda, corruption 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 and propaganda, lies 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 and propaganda, controlling propaganda, controlling propaganda, controlling propaganda, controlling propaganda, corruption and 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 propaganda, lies and propaganda, corruption and propaganda, lies and propaganda, corruption, propaganda, corruption and propaganda, corruption and propaganda, corruption, control and propaganda. Let's go. Free Alberta. Yeah. Let's go. Free Alberta. Free Alberta. Yeah. Let's go. Free Alberta. Free Alberta. Yeah. Let's go. Free Alberta.
Wah, wah. Just give me a second, folks. My God, should have been on top of this morning. There we go. How's it going, everybody? Thanks for tuning in to the 25th episode of Alberta Radio Show today, June 3rd, and just do a little weather update. So right across the province, as you can see, I got my screen set up there. Looks good. And so right through the province right now, we're averaging about 13 degrees to 18 degrees with a lot of rain, and that should settle for a couple days, and we're expecting more rain. So approximately we received about 130 millimeters of rainfall or more in the last few days. So Banff got, flooding is happening down there. They even got snow. Calgary, they were worried about the Bow River and stuff. So pretty interesting, say the least, right? So we're working on that. And last night I did a show where it was, about UFOs. And so we're going to do that more often, the late night shows on strange phenomenons and stuff. Last night, my show, for some reason, my audio, I got to patch my sound card today. So I had a little issue where I went to go play a video and the whole freaking stream cut off. And next thing you know, I couldn't hear no voice. So I was like, oh man, I didn't feel like fixing it. So whatever. Anyway, so today's show, we got some really good topics today. And I wanted to update everybody about my meeting with the mayor yesterday. And where is that? Oh, look at Andrew. He's the little guy. Whoop. There we go. All right. So I did meet with the mayor yesterday. And so initially, this is all came about because I was trolling the mayor and city councilors for like 2 weeks about the homeless issue here in Edmonton, where we have 4,000 homeless individuals, facing different kinds of life issues. And it's sad. And my concern is not only that we have all these homeless people, but at the same time, I have a problem with the high rate of amputation. So it's like all these homeless people are lining up in the winter to freeze, only to be amputated in the spring. And there's 700 cases of 300 or 400 cases of amputations. And then on top of that, this year we're expected to lose another 700 Edmontonians from opiate deaths. Now, when I look at this program, and I've been an activist for this, against this, since 2017, and I've been checking to see who's getting the funding, how the program's working, if harm reduction is actually reducing the use of these hard drugs, but it's not. We have a huge amount of loss of life. Over 100,000 Canadians have died from opiates in the last, just since 2020 even. So it's a genocide program is what it is now. It's funded by the government. They're killing our people. They're not doing anything to stop it. And it's just political rhetoric continuously. So when I met with the mayor yesterday, we talked about this, and he explained to me how the funding works, which I already knew. That some of it comes from the province, some of it comes from the feds, and they're trying to work collectively. It seems like every time that the municipality tries to present something, there's always some type of roadblock with the feds or stakeholders, but at the same time, there is stuff happening, but it's just not fast enough, right? So I didn't take everything for granted with the mayor, because I know how politicians talk. I addressed some solutions where we can eliminate this problem quickly by using all the tools necessary that's been doled down by the provincial government. So we have a compassionate act where we can offer treatment to folks. We can put them in front of a tribunal if they're not sound of mind. Because right now, when you go look in little Chinatown, you got people walking around like zombies, completely blitzed and incoherent. So they're not sound of mind to make decisions for themselves, right? So at that point, we need to use these new rules so that we can get these people, back to health, save their lives, get them the treatment they need, and re-educate and retrain people. Now, part of that also, of the 4,000 homeless, is families waiting on lists, right, for housing. So I do know that the city of Edmonton, there's going to be a report put out on the 6th, which I'm going to get a copy of, and it'll give us more of an update of what's up to date status of where we are for Edmonton. And that report hasn't been released yet. The mayor told me about it, so I'm anticipating reading what they got to say. The other issue that was brought to my attention from the mayor was that in Alberta, just in Edmonton alone, we have 3,400 inmates that are incarcerated, and it seems like the government's only focusing on the women, right, to get them retrained and help and everything, so that when they leave the jails, they're going somewhere. And what's happening in Edmonton, on top of the homeless issue, is the fact that male inmates are being released, and they're being just dropped off at an LRT, or dropped off at a Hope Mission and stuff. And there's no real rehabilitation program in place to help inmates. So I was a little shocked to hear that, because Ontario, if you're an inmate in Ontario, you can apply for all these programs and get the help all you need. You just got to apply for it. You got to show the initiative first, right? So that also was a concern for me, because that also is part of the homeless issue and the high crime rate, because people are just going back to crime. They have nothing to go to. So we need to do some work in lobbying the government to try and get these programs in place, because what I would rather do is invest in our people before we start continuing, or we stop funding foreigners. I don't think it's right that we're prioritizing people coming in from other countries first over our own people, especially if it's causing loss of life. And since this immigration program has been put in place by the Liberals, Canada has lost 250,000 people just from the programs that the Canadian government offer. It is like, you have maids, you got MAID, you got harm reduction, you got safe supply, catch and release program, violent crimes, domestic crimes that are violent, that cause loss of life. I mean, addictions is through the roof. It's an onslaught killing campaign. It's a genocide that's being conducted by the federal government of Canada and other governments. And they just look at it, well, it's for your own good, right? Like, everything is always for your own good, but we're just going to kill you off and just keep replacing you with people from India. So I said that to the mayor yesterday. I said, when you walk around our city, it's India. Like, it's not Canadians anymore, and I have a problem with that. We're prioritizing foreign people. So basically, I just got the jumbling of, we're going to do funding, we're going to do better. And, it's the same song and dance. And I don't know if he took me serious or not, but I know I'm a threat to Andrew Knack now. Like, yesterday, sitting down with this guy, I put my own intellect, my political intellect, to the test to see where I sit with the current mayor in front of me in terms of how intellectually sound I am, and how I'm having a conversation, controlling my conversation with him, to make him understand that I'm not just some schmuck off the street that's uneducated, right? And he knows. So he also knows that I worked for Jack Layton. I offered some extra stuff just because, like, I think that, aside from Alberta Radio show, but as a content creator myself, I think I could go out there and try to, make more awareness, just like other content creators, and then one of them is Jesse for Yeggs. So Jesse's out there doing all this stuff. And honestly, if it was to come down to two people becoming the mayor of Edmonton, I would actually vote for Jesse. He's, I give him more credit because he's actually out there covering a lot of stuff, and I'm barking about it. But I also know how to manipulate and contact and make things happen within government here, municipal government, because I've done a lot of stuff for folks, and I'm not even a counselor, and I get more stuff done than Michael Jans. So, I explained that to him, and I told him that, I can correlate how these groups are spending their money, and it just, I don't know. For me, it was like, I don't know. It was positive conversation, right, back and forth. It was really positive, but I had some time to think about it yesterday. That's why I didn't come on right away and update everybody yesterday, because I felt like, I'm gonna just take some time, swallow it all, and see what I can do, where I'm at with it, just process it all. And then, I went after that, I just said, like, really, it just didn't go anywhere. Like, it's just a matter of wait and see. And, people, we're all tired of wait and see and endless promises that just don't come through. So, Andrew Knack, in my opinion, on a personal level, he seems to be a nice guy and stuff, but on a political level, I just don't think that there's enough being done. I think that there's more that needs to be done, and we need to fast track it and stop playing this waiting game. Now, the one thing that the mayor did tell me was, and there's an opportunity to have private stakeholders and maybe new organizations to come in, where the city is willing to give us the land to build housing for low income. Not you can get federal and provincial funding for, and you can create a partnership with the province and have them basically as an make sure that the province is the ones that are doing the oversight on these builds. Now, the mayor did explain to me that we have apparently 20 new builds going up with 50 units each to offset the low income people that are faced with low income and not to help them. But yet at the same time, I told him, I'm like, well, we have all these infills like that are empty. There's like a 30 to 40% vacancy rate on the infills. And why aren't we just saying to these developers, look, we gave you 90% off the accelerator fund. We gave you all these freebies, and you guys can't even house it, and you're housing people at a high cost of rent. I think we should be setting some type of motion in place where we take control because they're sitting there duds, right? Convert them into low rentals. Use the ones that are multiplex ones, like because there's a lot of these units that are 36 units and they're just all empty. They've been sitting empty for months, nobody moving in. No, there's no movement, and those buildings could be utilized for low rental and low income folks that are on a waiting list. So we'd actually, if we were to be smart and utilize these things, we could reduce homelessness by 40 to 50% in like 6 months. And here in Edmonton, that means we would be going from 4,000 homeless down to 2,000. Now, the other thing too, I will say this is last year's report stated that we had over 5,000 homeless people, and this year we have 4,000. Well, when you look at the deaths, okay, and when Knack told me this, and he's like, well, there's been some improvements. We reduced it by 1,000, and I'm thinking, no, those people are all dead. I didn't say that to him, but like that's what I thought because that's exactly the truth. So on one hand, we have municipal governments who will say, oh, we're reducing the rate of homelessness. But when you actually go look at the reduction, they're all people who died, right? They've died from overdoses. They've died from infections, getting sick, or they've been murdered, or something. So they succumb to the injuries or whatever it is. So, I mean, it just goes to show that we're really not reducing any statistic at all. It's just a campaign of death. That's what this is. And we need to do better. So I don't know. I'm waiting to see what this report generates, right? I want to see what this report says. And then I'm going to go from there. But I'm going to be really harping on the USDP in the next little bit because, Daniel Smith's government's in power and we need to do better. And if the Smith government is giving all these millions of dollars to municipalities like Edmonton, then we need some type of audit right now because it's not being allocated to reduce the problem. We have more people dying, and that's what's reducing the problem. It's the death rate. It's not anything that anybody's doing. And millions and hundreds of millions of dollars is going into these housing, homeless, drug addiction, harm reduction. And all these organizations are paying themselves 90% of the funding to their salaries. So, I mean, anybody can go out and create a non-for-profit, okay, and put it under the ruse of harm reduction, let's say. You'll get a couple $1 million, and out of that couple $1 million, oh, I run myself a salary for $200,000 this year, and I'm going to hire a bunch of people, and and then you're paying salaries, and you're not actually, offering a solution to the problem. It's just getting worse. And 5% of the funds go to what? Little things that we help the homeless with. Like, this is ridiculous. So I'm really upset at the fact that our government, and it gives us more reason for Albertans to say, screw you, Canada. Because Canada, the federal government's directive right now, 100% is to kill the collective, get rid of as many foundational Canadians, people, those of us, our families have built this country, and they're just eradicating us. And then on the same time, when you look at the statistics for immigration versus the people that we've lost, Canadians, homegrown Canadians that were born here, all those Canadians that are dead. And then you look at immigration, and I don't know, man, the numbers are whoop, right? So we actually have a major problem right now in this country, especially in Alberta. I want to tackle this issue. Now, whether I'm going to move forward with political aspirations, that's yet to be determined when that happens. But this guy here, like, I don't know. I'm going to wait to this report. And I have a feeling this report's just going to be, just more smoke and mirrors. So what I'd like to do after the report's done is get a team of people together, people who care about Albertans, people who care about our citizens, and really use our team to lobby and be a voice and be as effective as possible to force the provincial government to intervene and run a massive fiscal audit on the city and all these organizations who received funding that have taken the lives of all our citizens. Now, people will say, well, they're not the ones taking the lives. They're enabling it. They are getting paid hundreds of millions of dollars to solve this problem, but they're not. So when you look at it, they're profiting over the lives of others by writing themselves, $100,000 salaries to sit on their ass at a desk and do absolutely nothing. That's exactly what's happening in Edmonton. It's happening in cities across the country that are Liberal NDP biased. Every Liberal and NDP city is faced with major harm reduction, deaths, overdoses, amputations, and homeless. I mean, we have cities that are just blanketed with tents everywhere. I mean, it's unbelievable. And it's only the Liberal and NDP cities. The conservative cities, okay, what's happening, we're noticing, is that once these groups identify a conservative city, I can prove this, by the way, once these left-wing activists, NDPers and liberals and whatever, when they figure out that a small town is a conservative base with no issues, they go into those cities and try and make it sound like there's a problem. They'll amplify it, and then they'll even start making shit happen, like dumping needles everywhere, bringing in organized, like these guys coming in and just flooding your town with drugs, and then creating the problem. And they actually do this. They did this to Ontario, a couple towns in Ontario where there was no issues. Absolutely, it was so low. But because this non-for-profit, they were losing money in the one city, they decided to expand in other cities, hoping to get funding, and they brought all their nightmare with them, and now those cities are decimated. It's a fact. So harm reduction is a plague. It's a cancer to the Canadian collective. It's a cancer to every province. It's a cancer to every city. And they're not saving lives. They're taking lives. So for me, I consider that a political genocide, and it's murder. At the end of the day, these people are participating in an onslaught of murder. Because if I was hanging around with somebody and my friend decided, he gets in a fight and kills somebody, and, I could be possibly charged as an accessory, right? So why isn't that not happening to the folks who are part of the program that are killing people? So it's unbelievable. So that's that with Mayor Knack. And then what was the next one? Let's see here. Give me a second. Put that up for now. There we go. All right. So up next is the all-in-one licenses. So today the Alberta government announced that we're all going to get new licenses with all our ID on it. There are some folks who are against this. There are some folks who are for it. I'm one of them who are for it. It's not digital ID. It's just wrapping your license and everything into one. Digital ID is when you're going to be downloading an app for social credit scores like China. That's digital ID. But right now with the licensing, by putting your passport on your license or your health card or whatever, like that government issued ID, I think I'm okay with that because I'm tired of flipping through ID all the time. I'm one of those guys. So we'll see how this goes in terms of how they're going to deploy it with a digitized version later on. So I'm keeping an eye on that. But the Premier did announce this today, and I'll play the video. I was actually, wow, really? We're going with this, right? Here we go.
Alberta, we're finally getting rid of these.
That's right. Instead of carrying a driver's license, paper healthcare card, passport, or birth certificate to prove citizenship, all that information will now be on your driver's license or Alberta ID card.
One card, that's it. And we're doing it at no extra cost because Albertans shouldn't have to pay more for something that just makes sense.
Other provinces have already moved away from paper healthcare cards, and countries like Finland, Italy, and Brazil already include citizenship markers on ID. This is about making everyday life simpler and making government services easier to access when you need them.
It's a practical change that saves time and makes life easier.
So are we tossing these into the shredder?
Whoa, we better go to the registry and get our new cards first, Al.
So in order to get the new card, you need to go to the registry, sign up for a new one. I like the one ID, one card ID. So I back the premier on this, and it's right. But we'll see where it goes, right? Because you never know. They could be implementing more stuff later on, but this has been talked about for a couple decades now. You know, people have said, like, back in 2000 when tech was starting to get more developed and bank cards were being more sophisticated and stuff, and people were like, well, you know, maybe we should just have our ID all in one. And I agree with that. Some folks won't, but I like the idea. So it's just like Damien, he likes the idea, right? So we have some really cool stuff coming up for that. What else do we got on the... Oh, yes. So Forever Canadian. All right. Forever Canadian. Well, we found out who one of their paid individuals are. And here we are, Serena Ma. Okay, so Serena Ma is being paid by Sohi, Knack, the NDP, and Forever Canadian to propagate the narrative of a go against the separatists. They're completely anti-separatist campaigns. So Serena's her site, I got to give her, like, it's a nice site, so I might scan it later. But basically, we now know that she is a paid third-party advertiser, and she's been spreading propaganda. As you can see, here's her followers: Armajit Sohi, John Humphrey Center, Stephen Mandel, Coalition for Justice, Act to End Racism. Now remember ACT, okay? They had Act Blue in the States. Act 2 is in Canada with what was the other company called? There's a union, ACTRA, the ACTRA union. Ever Active Schools for Perverts. And then they have Mr. Q Creenation, who's on board now. So we got reserves on board paying for anti-separatists. We have a couple of them. Go Run Girls Only Run Club, the Mustard Seeds involved, Indigenous Knowledge and Wisdom Center, the Canadian Mental Health Association, which is federal, Edmonton International Airport as anti-separatists, folks, just so you know that, and they're paying into this girl for anti-separatist campaigns. Hold Media House, Atlas Biotechnology, Andrew Knack, right? Andrew Knack, right? So these folks are all in it to go against us. They're anti-democratic. These folks want to keep the clutch of Canada and on us, right? So it's our job to now really focus on what we need to do to win the fight. That's where we're at right now. So a lot of folks are working on stuff, and Damien right now is working on Common Hold. So if you see a post about Common Hold that's, you know, either from me or Damien or whatever, you'll get an invite or something. This is an app for Albertans and for all of us who seek independence. It's an all-in-one app. Damien's been working his ass off on this app. So I talked to him yesterday. I seen a screenshot of what it looks like. It looks dope. I mean, so I'm really excited to see what it looks like when I get to test it. But yeah, I just want to give a blitz about that a little bit. And Damien, if that's okay, that's maybe I shouldn't have said shit, but I think we should let Alberta separatists know that there's work being done right now. And I gotta say, man, you know, when you have one of the best skilled app developers in Alberta doing the job right now, like that's amazing. And I'm just gonna say this, and no, there is no data or anything. This is completely opt-in. There's none of that shit that David Parker did and with Centurion Project, which I disagree with, right? So it's going to be good. It's going to be good. So I just wanted to give a little split burb about that a little bit. And I know it's good. Right? Nah, it's good. So that's going to be awesome when that comes out. And what else? We did that. All right. So up next is the Mega Blue Mile, which is a grassroots. I don't know if you can see that on my screen. Oh, you can. So the Mega Blue Mile is a grassroots organization. Basically, Tyson. It's an organization at this point, just not But Tyson Rovich and a lot of his partners and friends have been really working hard at getting the convoys going and getting people on the overpasses and just getting community together, getting people together to get our message out there. Now, with that, I'll give you guys the details on this. And give me a second. I'll get more. Should have wrote this up, but I forgot to this morning. All right, so the Mega Blue Mile Flag Wave and Slow Roll Storm, June 7th, which will be this weekend. And that is going to be, they're going to be meeting up in Collingwood Road the flag wavers are going to be at Collingwood Road, Anthony Henday Overpass, and Lessard Road, Anthony Henday Overpass, and that'll be from 1 till 4. The Slow Roll meetup is at 1 p.m. in Atchison at 266th Street and 114th Avenue, and that will be going around. Now, the details of this weekend's get-together. So basically, they're inviting everybody in Alberta to join the Alberta Independence Convoy and Overpass Flag Wave. So this will be from 1 to 4 on Sunday. So what they're going to be doing is they're going to roll out at 1:40, head to the Anthony Henday flag wavers, and they'll meet up at those points. And after it's all said and done, everybody's meeting up at 4 p.m. at the Boston Pizza by the Collingwood Road overpass to connect with everybody. And if anybody needs more information, I always tell them to contact Tyson, because Tyson's the guy behind it. And you can contact him at 780-690-5478. And again, you can contact Tyson at 780-690-5478. You can also follow Tyson on X, and his handle is the Rising Army 77. So if you look up the Rising Army of Alberta Independence, you'll find him there. And you can find Tyson on Facebook, Tyson Rahovich. And I just want to say, man, he's been doing some phenomenal work. Also, Tyson's been, every Sunday we've been doing the evening mass, and basically we get everybody to come in and we do an evening prayer. So I missed last one, but I like to promote this as well, because it's good for, there's a lot of like-minded Christians who just want to congregate together, and so I think it's important, because it's it's who we are here in Alberta. So that's going to be fun. What else do we got going on? Oh, the Newswire today. We did that. Oh, yeah. So now for the Independence update. So I did pull a video of from Rise of Alberta with Keith Wilson, and I wanted to play this video. It's a 34-second clip, but it's a really good clip. So here we go.
And my friend points out about be careful before you tear down the fence. And he also points out about the institution, the glory of the institutions. Canada's institutions, with all due respect, are corrupt. And we've all witnessed it. We've all witnessed it. And it's tragic and it's sad. And you know whose hearts bleed the most when they see it? The veterans. Because that's not what they fought for. That's not what they fought for at all. The Canada that exists today is not the Canada they fought for.
Right, and that is absolutely true. And then we got Jason Schilling of the ATA, where I watched a video this morning, and he's like, this is what's interesting, is a lot of these folks on the left try to use World War II as a springboard for their stories. But none of them can prove that any one of their family actually served other than saying, oh, well, they're all in Europe buried. It's always something where you can't correlate the evidence and you can't even fact check it in the database. And I watched Jason Schilling this morning on a video saying that his uncles are buried in France and all this stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, really, like, so I went and looked and I couldn't find any source of what he was stating. So again, like these radical left wingers will propagate any type of narrative to fit the bill. That's what they do. They're activists. So, I just wish that these people would stop hijacking things to make it for their own and just be honest and focus on the priority right now, right? And like, I'm okay with having resistance because we have free speech, and I'm okay with that. And everybody has a right to express their ideology, well, their ideas and beliefs in terms of, if they want to go and vote for separation or not, have a referendum or not, right? But more importantly is nobody's given 2 cents about Quebec right now. Quebec's going to be the first one to leave, right? And it's interesting that how the narrative is different. So when Quebec did the referendum, Canada was like, oh, we love you. We want you guys to stay. And it was all lovey-dovey stuff. And then because it's Alberta, oh, we hate you. You guys are MAGA. You guys are racist. You guys are this and that. You see how the narrative changed in such a small time, like between the 90s and to now, and how the activism and radicalness has been brought forth, right? It's unbelievable. So, there's talk now that the Quebec separatists support Alberta, and I think that Albertans should support the Quebec separatists and work together so that we can get both provinces out of the scope of the federal government of Canada, and this bitching needs to stop because, these people are the ones who are all public sector workers. You have to remember, the government is not only funding state media, right, with billions of dollars of grant money going into CBC, going into CTV and Global, but you have to remember that all these people that are against the separatists are all public sector workers that are paid by the government. So not only is the government paying for media, but they're paying these workers, right? They're off the backs of taxpayers. They shouldn't even be out there using the unions to propagate a narrative of anti-separatism because that is not going for the collective of the membership. The union's job is to represent the worker, not the citizen. And that's where they're completely offside. You represent the worker. That's why we have union reps, right? That's why we have grievances. That's why we have meetings with our union reps and the unions and the individual involved. And we have litigation and we, you know what I mean? Like, so when is enough is enough? And so what they're doing is they're taking the membership money of the union workers who pay their union dues, and they're now straight up activism. They're spending it on activism rather than spending it on, potential strikes or stuff the union members need to make their jobs easier, or working for the union members themselves. But instead, it's a complete onslaught of corruption, of nepotism, favoritism, manipulation, and theft and fraud. And that's how I look at it. Because the minute you take, it's like me saying to an employee, okay, if I had employees and I said, hey guys, you guys want to come in and pay part of your let's say for medical coverage. Now, sometimes as an employer, you have to have your workers opt in to pay partial, and then the employer will pay partial. So I did this before, and I had no problem. Everybody paid into it. So imagine if I tell my employees who are paying into their healthcare plan that I'm going to now take their money, instead of paying for their healthcare plan, I'm going to use it to go and protest. Because basically that's what they're doing, just using the membership dues to do it, right? So when you looked at the ATA last year when they striked, none of them got strike pay. It cost the union like millions of dollars for the protest because they flew and bussed people in from other provinces, from other unions. And then they turned around and looked at the ATA membership and said, oh, by the way, your union dues are going up because we have to pay for the protest because we used all your money. Isn't that illegal? This is Jason Schilling and Gil McGowan and, Jason Scott, also Big Mouth, all these people, and the NDP. And it's just unbelievable how they're manipulating the people. And what blows my mind is all these hardworking Albertans, okay, are being robbed. And they're just like, yes, Daddy, spank me some more. Yes, Daddy, spank me some more. Please take my money. Please take my union dues. Please charge me more. Please screw me in the ass. And you know what I mean? Like, honestly, I'll call it what it is, because really you're getting fucked. And it just blows my mind that these people do not want to stand up for themselves, right? There's a small portion of them that are, and they come to us and we talk to them, we engage with those great folks. But in a general sense, the union is completely corrupt with the NDP. Like, there's even Lukasik, okay? He come on my profile one day because we tagged him in a post where we're like, we got his financials, right? We got the financials of his this financial submissions to Elections Alberta. So when we all got copies of this, there's a section where he has 120 some odd extra $1,000 from all the donations. So we asked him, what did you do with the money? And he's like, oh, we gave it to charity, to various charity groups. Really? Is there any record of it? No, there's no record that money went to those charity groups at all. And he won't provide that publicly. So now all of a sudden the campaign starts, and what happens? All these signs get printed. And I mean, when I looked at the press signs that were being done at the press, and just by looking at the videos, and there was a mass amounts of signs, yeah, that could have been an easy 50 grand. Easy 50 grand right there. So how I look at it, okay, is they took the profit money, and he probably did donate it to another organization, and that money comes right back around, because then they're using a third-party advertiser, and it's money laundering is what they're doing. It's complete money laundering, but they're using every legal aspect to do it. And that needs to be reviewed, and we need to nip that stuff. We need to nip these little loopholes so that everybody's having a fair chance at the game. So what I'm doing now is, right now I'm looking to raise some money, okay, because I want to register as a third-party advertiser for the referendum. And I've already set myself up that we can do the ads now. I got my Google ads set. It's all set up. I registered Alberta Radio show with the province of Alberta. I went and registered it with the city. The city is going to issue my license now. They approved it and everything. I just got to pay for it. So right now I want to actually build up some funds so that I can just start pushing. And then anybody who wants to buy ads from me can do so, and I can propagate those ads. So I have a client that I'm going to be meeting with today about this, and I'm really looking forward to that. But I'm leaving it open for other folks too, right? Like I want to hit this hard as we can. I have some really good ideas how we can really hit this hard, and just for some advice to other third-party advertisers for the referendum that are on our side. Right now, we need signage, okay? We need massive amounts of signs out there right now. So I suggest that whoever is going to print signs, get them printed right away. Any other third-party advertisers should look at those, the transport trailers that we have all along the side of highways that are advertising. We need to get stuff on all of those billboards, mainstream radio if they take it. If not, we're going to improve our radio station. That's the whole intent right now, because we are up against the beast. So from what I understand is that the local radio stations are going to be biased towards advertising, is what I heard. I got this, I'm already in the loop with this, and anybody that is for Alberta separation are going to be denied the advertising, and anybody that's pro Canada are going to get the advertising from these organizations. So Alberta Radio right now, we are almost there to be a full-blown radio station online, with the hope within the next little bit that we start buying the equipment to become and get our licensing through the CRTC to become an actual public radio station. That's my goal long term right now. So we get a lot of interaction with Alberta Radio on Facebook. The radio station, when we do our campaigns this last week, we did a couple just feelers, and I mean, one day we had 500 listeners on the radio station. I couldn't believe it. And our servers were peaking, so I had to go back to the server admins and say we need more bandwidth. So it cost me a little bit of more money this month, but it's growing and people are listening. So my thing is, if we're able to reach the masses like this, and I'm able to do the job, well, yeah, man, I want to be part of this. I want to be able to advertise and promote the vote, right? So that's what we're doing, and I'm working with other partners. Like I got my friend Damien; he's developing an app, and that's going to come online soon. So I'm just waiting for that to happen, and you guys are going to love that, by the way. And then Damien, we're going to be doing skits. So we talked about this. We're going to start co-hosting. Damien's going to come on and co-host. He doesn't want to show his face though, guys. We gotta compel him to show his face. Got you, buddy. Anyways, but no, he's doing a lot of work, and I really admire the fact that he's just diving in, man. Like I wish I could do the app. I could if I wanted to, but I just don't have the time because I'm all over the place right now, and I'm really trying to get this off, launched, fully launched, and then rock it. Just smash it, the media, right? So with that also is, I'm going to work collectively with other social media content creators like Derek Smith and John the Patriot, PJ the Belt, Freedom Calendar, Berta Proud, all of us, like we're all planning on hitting events together and maybe teaming up, pairing with each other, and going to all these massive community events. But with that said, we want literature from other folks, like give us the literature. We'll hand it out. We don't care. We'll go and meet people. We're going to tell our followers to come and meet us at these places and then just educate the masses like that, right? So we want to hit the Stampede. We want to hit K-Days. We want to hit all the big festivals. Whether we're not allowed on property or not, well, then you know what? We'll sit on the off property and public on the public property and do what we have to while people are coming in and out. It doesn't stop us or prevent us from getting the literature out, but we really need to make sure that we are visible 100% or more. Like at its maximum. At its maximum. Keyword in activist is act. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, another story before, I want to bring up is this. I have one of our followers reached out to us, and I still haven't had a chance to call her son because I just got slammed with last minute stuff. But I am going to bring this up because I think we need to help. We need to help this individual. I'm just going to bring this up. Give me a second. Here it is. All right. So one of our followers, her son, and this is the story. So I'll read you the email she sent me. She says, "Hi, Alberta Radio." Actually, you know what? I'll share the screen so you guys see the email. This way here, you guys see what I see. Do you see what I see? Anyways. All right. So here it says, "Hi, Alberta Radio. I'm not sure of your name, but I'm thinking Jason for some reason." Right. My son's house burnt down on Christmas Eve due to a faulty dryer. No rental insurance. The Red Cross put him up in a hotel for 2 days. Then on December 27th, they were put out on the street. Imagine that, right? Your house burns down, and the Red Cross is only going to help you for 2 days, and then you're back on the streets. And this is the problem in Edmonton. This is the problem in Alberta, right? Your house burns down. They don't care. So now she's not sure where he is, and he's couch surfing and trying to find an affordable place. And also he was a victim of a violent crime. So 2 years ago, back in 22, a black guy shot him, right? And the bullet still lodged in his leg, and it's resting beside one of the major arteries. They couldn't be removed, so they pinned. He has a pin from his hip to his knee, and the doctors won't release him to work, and he cannot, for some reason or another, welfare is not giving him any assistance, and disability is not helping him either, right? And yet he can't walk, he can't work, nothing, and we have a problem with AISH, right? Already we have a problem with AISH, and this is where I agree with the NDP, sorry, but I do agree with the NDP on the AISH thing. But we need to do better. And stories like this really bother me. And I wanted to present this earlier, and I did want to reach out to Chris. I just haven't had a chance, but I'm probably going to call him today. Now, Chris did email me and told me that his situation hasn't changed. He really needs the help. So what I was thinking of doing this week is maybe we might set up a GoFundMe for Chris so that we can all try and help him and get him out of the situation that he is, because he's a really, like, I looked into this guy. He's a really good guy. He's not, he's not a troublemaker, nothing. He just, bad luck. And not only did he get shot in 2022 with a bullet lodged in his leg, his house burnt down and nobody's helping him. They're just letting him hang. But I'll tell you one thing. If he was a refugee coming in from a burnt down house in another country with a bullet lodged in his leg, he'd be getting all the funding in Canada because Canada would be throwing money at him. But we can't do that for our own citizens because that's too Canadian, right? So I just wanted to bring that up. And Sandy, yes, we're going to do what we can to help your son. So I wanted to bring that up because I don't forget about the things I'd interact with, and just because I get busy doesn't mean I forget. But I did want to bring it up today for my viewers and my followers so that, they can expect that we're going to try and help Chris out in this endeavor. And I will update everybody in the next couple of days. I'm going to reach out to Chris today, but that is what I would like to do, is set up a GoFundMe for Chris so that we can get some funds to him, get him out of the situation he has. He has a family, and it's unbelievable that this happened to him, and it's happening to other Albertans all over the province. Where they end up in a situation and they're not getting any help at all from anybody, right? And the province really needs to do like this AISH thing with the ADAP. Like that's just a bogus thing. That's a bogus thing in my view, because the way I look at it is, how do you accept the provincial government and federal government? Like, I don't know how they expect people who are on disability, especially those who have mental disabilities, can follow the transition of reapplying and all this shit. Some of them don't even understand it, right? So this is where caseworkers are supposed to come in place with their doctors to assist that, and they're not doing nothing. Like, you go to a doctor to get AISH, you got to pay the doctor $200 to get your form submitted. Like, what are we doing? But Canadians can't claim refugee in their own country because it's too Canadian. We'd rather take care of other people from other countries because that's the way the Canadian way is. Basically rob Peter and to feed Paul, right? And when you're robbing Peter, you're robbing the poor. So that's my opinion on it. I just think we need to do better when it comes to this stuff. What else today? On a roll. Oh yeah. So I want to play there's a couple things. So I got two more topics to cover. One is the Quebec separatists, and I just wanted to play this video because they support Albertans. And I think really that we should have a delegate team of Albertans working directly with Quebec. And maybe we can learn a few things from them, right?
Bit of difference between what's going on.
It is still up to them. It is still up to Albertans to decide, and definitely not to another government to decide on what if the question should have been asked in the first place. That's basically what you're telling me. The question shouldn't have been asked because it was not part of the promises the to-be government would have mentioned during a campaign. It is not up to me to decide that. I'm not Albertan. It will be up to the Albertans to decide. So as a member from from Quebec, from a different province, and you can quote me on the fact that I use province in that case. Being from the nation of Quebec, I should have no say on how Albertans will decide. It's only up to them, the same way it will be up to Quebecers to decide on their future without any say from the federal, from Papa Ottawa telling Quebecers with a certain disdain, well, the question's not clear enough for you to understand. And that's basically what the Clarity Act is, and that's basically the door that the Prime Minister is opening. So in no way it is possible, in our view, that someone else, other than the Albertans, decide for them. The way it's going to be the same for, it's going to be only Quebecers who will be able to decide for them when the time comes.
Right? Yeah, I love that rally. It was awesome. So again, the Parti or the Parti Québécois, the separatist Quebec party, they're on our side. They've been doing this a lot longer than us, and they're a lot more ahead than us. And I've always said this. Okay, now we have the citizen-led initiative, and there's other things we could have done to put questions on for a referendum. And I get, like, yes, we have the questions sound okay that we had, that Mitch put down, and that's the federal government using the natives to propagate. So these chiefs are being paid off. We all know that. And then on top of that, you have state propaganda, and then they're using third-party advertisers that are all state-funded public sector workers. So this is complete money laundering by the feds. and embezzlement and stuff, and it's complete fraud, right? But I just want to emphasize on a couple things that Quebec did do where Alberta didn't do. Now, the one way to truly seek your independence as a province, Quebec did some really key things after the referendum that they lost. And they waited 2 decades. So in 2023, in August, the Quebec Assembly, okay, the Legislative Assembly, voted unanimously, 95%, all members voted to not recognize the Crown anymore, not recognize the monarch as a head of state, not recognize the Governor General and the Lieutenant Governor and the Prime Minister. They just come and they voted all that. So now they have that in place. They don't have to recognize. And then this year, at the beginning of the year, they removed the Crown from their flag. And then apparently later this year, they're going to present their monetary dollar, the new Quebec dollar, which will be, I think it's going to be crypto. So there is an election coming for Quebec this year, and it is the polls and everybody, it looks like the Quebec Separatists are going to win the election. And the leader of the Quebec Separatists have said already publicly they are going to run a referendum a couple days after they win the election, so that Quebec is completely sovereign from Canada. Now, where are Canadians on that issue if they're so hell-bent against Albertans, right? So what I say to Albertans is, it's too bad we still didn't have the time frame to submit another question to the citizen-led initiative, because one of the questions we should be asking for all Albertans should we continue to recognize Canada as a head of state, or the monarch, or the Crown? Because that is something that is not constitutional. We're simply saying that we do not recognize these people as a head of state anymore, and it doesn't become a constitutional matter or argument. This is done. I mean, if the Legislative Assembly in Quebec can vote on it and make it sound, think about if it was put to the public on a citizen-led initiative. That's also legal. So that would have saved us a huge headache. And a secondary question could have been, do you, like what Mitch's question has, do you think that Alberta should be part of Canada? So that would have been like hand in glove, and there would have been no argument over it. But what the federal government did on this question for Mitch was, and this is my own opinion, okay? I'm going to say this, my own opinion. I don't know if it's true or not, but just looking at the corruption within government and the money embezzlement, the money laundering, the fraud, the coercion, paying off chiefs all the time and paying off minority groups to weaponize their messaging and stuff. I believe that they paid the chiefs to run this injunction, to stall our initiative, which then forced the premier to enact an order in council to make it happen anyways, non-binding. Now, where do I stand on this? Where do I stand on how the chiefs have this injunction? Well, I've been studying the treaties, I've been studying case law for a while, and I found 3 case laws that argue in BC on land claims. So there's a precedent on this issue where the argument was that the treaties were fraudulent, that some of the signatories weren't present, and how they got the signatures as well was coercion, because basically it was the Crown that wrote the treaty and they put X's on the thing, and they had a ceremony where the chiefs or whoever would just go and touch the pen, and that would justify a signature by touching the pen, not writing nothing, just touching the pen. So there was 3 case laws in BC where land claims were issued. The courts backed it and stating that oral history is a witness testimony to what happened, and that the treaties were fraud. So now this injunction that the First Nations chiefs here in Alberta have, if somebody was smart, like Keith Wilson, if Keith Wilson was really smart about this, he would argue the state of the treaties and their validity based on those 3 case laws, which would then, if the Supreme Court, which they should rule in favor, because they already ruled in favor on 3 different cases before at the Supreme Court level of Canada, those precedents are already there. Those case laws need to be presented for the argument to say that if this happened, then that means all the treaties are fraudulent and they're not. They were never done properly. That means they become moot, and that would actually trigger all the chiefs to go to they'd be forced. Their veto would that injunction would be nothing. They couldn't say nothing at that point. there's nothing they can do, because once you prove, on that injunction, then the argument will push it to a constitutional convention where all the First Nation chiefs will have to meet to renegotiate a modernized treaty. So people are like, "What? That's all." You can go look it up. Okay, there's 3 case laws on this. I even wrote a huge article about it, and yeah, there's a way for this to get eliminated. Now, right now, the premier, and she pushed forth the referendum non-binding, and she put the 2 questions. I mean, we have some folks that are against the premier on this, and some folks who understand the process and say, okay, well, it is a fair deal because we're offering it, but it's not what we want, right? Now, for me, my thing is, look, there's enough division going on, and between everybody, between the NDP. I mean, every Canadian, there's so much divide between Canadians, Albertans, everyone. Everybody's fighting. Doesn't matter. I mean, you can have a view on something, and the next guy will troll you because he's against your view. That's how insane our populace has become online. So when I look at it, I'm saying, well, look at the way I see the process and the rule of law currently, regardless of anything else. I think right now it's fair. I wish I prefer it to be the question being binding, yes, like everyone else, because I want independence as well. But in order to get there, we're going to have a few things to do. Now, the one thing I do agree with is, we need a backup plan, right? In case that we don't in case the majority manipulates the vote and whatever, we lose. So you always have to have that possibility. You have to think, what if this happens? Because we can never guarantee an outcome with the population, because things can happen. So what's the backup plan? Well, the backup plan that the premier is presenting is staying, as a sovereign Alberta within a united Canada. And when I look at that and I say, okay, well, yeah, I mean, it is a backup plan, but I'd like to learn more about it, because if we're putting in place where we're actually going to have no more federal overreach, the federal government doesn't have a say in Alberta, but Alberta is still maintaining its status as a province of Canada, but yet, using the monetary financial markets and stuff like that to transition later to an independent country. That's how I see it. So you have to understand that maybe the outcome of this in the long run, if we don't get the vote, and that's just saying if. I'm not saying we're going to get it or not get it. It's a hypothetical, because you have to have that possibility. You got to look at every possibility, and you have to branch it out to a solution. So when I look at this backup plan that the premier has, if we really utilized it, let's say hypothetically that we lose the vote, and then we end up voting that we remain in Canada and we become a sovereign Alberta. Well, it's not the end of the game, folks, because then we can still push harder every time we do an initiative to push the issue so that we become independent, because it'll help us get there faster. Now, the premier did release information yesterday about the cost of leaving Canada. We're supposed to be like 400 billion or 400, it was in the trillions or something. It was a lot of money. But really, when you look at it, that will be a shortfall. So if hypothetically Alberta was to leave Canada, yes, we have to pay out. And regardless of what we pay out, we're going to make that back in a few years. So we'll have there's going to be like sort of a recession in Alberta for the first couple of years, which we're going to bounce back by a huge amount because of our energy sector, our industries. It'll just bounce back. And remember, we don't have to transfer any more money to Canada anymore, right? And the problem right now is Canada's scared they're going to lose all this money because they bankroll off Alberta to pay for their social welfare programs in the East. That's majority of the money that's being transferred from Alberta to Ontario and Quebec. Ontario alone particularly pays for a lot of their social programs, welfare, and all this stuff. So it's us paying for it. So, when you look at our infrastructure here in Alberta and the state of Alberta, like, why are we paying for Ontario's problems? Ontario should, they're a service sector, government sector with mines, and that's all they got. They don't have any other real industries because all the car manufacturers have shut down. The EV plants that they were supposed to open got canceled. So now they've lost, I think it was 200,000 jobs in Ontario. They have 95,000 homeless people, and they're still bankrolling off the West, right? That's what they do. They just suck us dry. So at some point, like, we got to say that's enough. And whatever way we do it possible that we can cut them off, so that we can take that money and reinvest it into Alberta, 100%, I'm down with that. I just want to see Alberta flourish, because I'm one of those families, like my parents left in 1980, and after the first Trudeau, like so many Alberta families left Alberta to go to Ontario for work because there was no more work and there was nothing in here in Alberta. Like people were being laid off and everything. It was crazy, right? And that's the federal government of Canada with their national energy program that just trying to hijack and make it profitable for them. And Albertans are saying, no, we're not going to have another Ontario, because I'll tell you what the federal government did to Ontario. Ontario has a massive mining sector, okay? And all the mines that used to be Canadian owned are now foreign owned. And what the federal government did is they made it really hard on the Canadian companies to be fiscally profitable. Constant red tape, constant environmental impact bullshit, just blitzed the Ontario mines, forcing the Ontario Canadian companies, like the Canadian companies, the mining companies that are there in Ontario, they were forced to sell to globalists, to foreign countries. And then all of a sudden, the foreign countries take advantage of all these international programs that the federal government offers, and they get passes. Now, when you look at it, and you're looking at the dynamics, people are getting laid off. They're hiring their own people. Brazil, okay, they brought in their own workers, taking advantage of the workers program, that's a subsidy program that's offered by the feds. That's what they did. So they buy up our corporations that were Canadian owned. They sell them off to foreigners, and then the foreigners come in, they buy it up, they take control, and then they're starting to take advantage of the federal government's programs in terms of international workers, right? And then guess who loses jobs? Canadians. And not only that, these mining companies in Ontario have decimated their communities with damage. I mean, you have roads that are just the cities and municipalities don't get enough back from these companies to fix their infrastructure, and they're left footing the bill. And the mayors are going to beg these companies, "Can I have some money for the damage you created?" Right? Regardless if they're giving them, if jobs are being created. And the only way that they make the revenue, the municipalities make revenue off these companies, is if they have buildings, right? If they have buildings up, they get taxed on those buildings. Anything that comes out of the ground, they get nothing in return. There's no royalties going back to the municipalities for the extraction of minerals and iron or ore or copper or gold, whatever. None of it goes back. There's no royalties going back to those municipalities. The municipalities have to beg these companies. And the federal government, nothing. We don't care. So in Alberta, it's a little different, where the federal government's been trying to capitalize on our oil and gas industry, but yet forcing us into this like control to force our own companies to comply and then sell out to foreign entities like China. Like we have PetroChina. And on their sites, they got guys that are armed with AR-15s apparently. So it just goes to show like we have a problem. Yeah, you see that's another thing. Here's like this one. Yeah, like on stolen land. I grew up here, and why are we devolving to racism? And it's true. Like Damien said to me yesterday, he's like, is this like we should say something to the chiefs and to the elders and to the clan moms, like, with all your rhetoric of division and hatred that you have right now, propagating on Albertans and Canadians, like calling us colonizers and white people and all this stuff, which is not even our fault. For one, it's the government of Canada you should be pointing your argument at, not the people. But when you look at the tradition of First Nation, it's always been humbling, welcoming, always a sense of love and unity, and never chastise the other, like always respect and empathy. But that there is none of that anymore. It's just straight up hate. So people like Damien are asking, like, is this really what you guys, the messaging you're going to go with, that we're going to start teaching our kids? Like, is this what you really want our kids to learn? Is the division and hate that being propagated from even both sides, right? And that shouldn't happen. So, it's interesting to say that, when the chiefs and clan moms and council members have went from one directive and one belief of being empathetic and welcoming and respectful to everybody else, and all of a sudden hating white folks because they look white, and then saying, this is my land. Really? Is it really your land? Right? Like, it's just arguments for nothing. And then they resort to racism, right? Like, right away, it's racism. Oh, you're a white colonizer. You're a colonizer. You're a settler. Da-da-da, not realizing they don't even understand their own history, right? Because settlers were not responsible for any of the tribal wars in this country. You have to remember it was the Canadian government who formed partnerships with First Nations to eradicate other tribes, right? And no, Tommy Temper's in the house. What's going on, Tommy? How's it going, buddy? And Queenie's the worst. Yes, Queenie. Oh my God, this. I'm just gonna say this: if Queenie is watching, Queenie, I actually did some fact checking on a lot of bullshit that you're spreading. So number one, you're not related to me. I got that confirmed. Number two, your family is not registered with the Métis people in Manitoba, like you say you're a descendant of Elziar Goulet, and you say that he's your grandfather. That guy would, I'm sorry, but that Elziar is on my bloodline, and I can prove that. And you can call Winnipeg and ask yourself. My grandfather's actually buried a couple plots away from Louis Riel, and so and Ezreal used to be. It was my grandfather's dad. So when you look at the history, and I was trying to figure this out because how I met Queenie was at Pat King's rodeo. Okay. Now Pat and a few other people they know who I am and they know my family's descendancy. And when I got to Pat's rodeo, some folks reached out to me, hey man, we're going to plan this protest and you should come down and sit with us. And so I went down and sat with these group, and Queenie was telling me that she's a Goulet and stuff. And she was saying some things that honestly made me believe that, maybe there's potentially, she may be a far off cousin or something. Right. But she's not. I found out recently she's absolutely not. And now she's hating on people like me and hating on Tommy, and she's trolling all the time with her and her friends. And now she's partnered up with some folks from Manitoulin Island who are also spreading bullshit and lies. So I just disassociated myself from this girl. I'll tell you something about Queenie, and it's not to cause divide, but I'm just stating facts. Some really good people here in Alberta, they got together and they had the protests over at Highway 12 for the Axe the Tax. Okay. Now I know some of the people that put that protest together. It was Brenda Belanger. I think Sowery was out of jail at the time, and Sowery helped, and he attended. Amanda and George. There's a whole bunch of folks. Okay, that really were the ones that put this together. And Queenie had this habit of showing up at all these protests and starting shit with the cops. Right. And there's a video where she's like, people had to ask her to leave because of her behavior, trying to make a confrontation happen with the police, like right in their face, yelling at them and all this stuff for nothing. She's like off her rocker, this girl. So I think maybe it's too much weed or something. I don't know, but definitely she has a mental health issue where she can't hold it together. She's trolled Tommy constantly. I actually sat in Tommy's shows watching, and I'm watching her just blitz with bullshit. And he's got good moderators, so thank God. Tommy has some really good folks that are helping him out, getting rid of the filth. But right now, where I stand with her, look at folks. She's not part of the freedom movement. She puts on this show, and then she tries to hijack it, and then she insults everybody after and hates on all of us afterwards because she's not getting what she wants. And she lies. She's a compulsive liar. Queenie is a compulsive liar. So that's all I got to say about it. I just wanted to make sure I can clear the air about that, because I know Tommy, Tommy gets hammered by her all the time. She keeps making fake accounts, so there you go. That's my take on Queenie. Right on. Good to tell the truth. Tommy, if you're still watching, if you want to come on the show for a bit, I'll send you a link. I'll email it to you. So check your email. Tommy Temper. Hey, where did it go? Really? Oh my God, I swear sometimes. Give me a second, bro. Hey, you don't have your emails anywhere. Was it Tommy Temper at the TommyTemperShow.com or something? I remember you gave it to me. I just don't, for some reason, it's not coming up in my address book. But if you comment your email there, Tommy. I'll send you a link and you can come on if you want. So I'll wait for you, right? But I will call you after I'm done. So yeah, that's where I am at with a lot of the stuff that's going on in Alberta, and it's just unbelievable. What was the other video I want to play? Oh yeah, so here's the other thing too. So right now we have First Nations. Send it via X. Okay, give me a second. There we go. All right, sent. So we'll get Tommy to come on. We'll get Tommy to come on the show. Before Tommy gets in, so I just wanted to cover this one thing. So now it's been 5 years about the residential schools in Kamloops, about the so-called 215 bodies that they said they found, which is there's no proof of that. And now what they're trying to do is they want to seal the information for 75 years. They're demanding hundreds of millions of dollars from taxpayers, and now they want to create a law that if you are against it or question it, that they want to charge us and put us in jail for up to 2 years to silence us, right? This is the natives. So when I look at these people who are so loving and welcoming and all about inclusiveness have turned into full-blown Nazis, right? Full-blown Nazis, these people. Watch, I'll play the video.
C9 be amended in clause 4 on page 2 by adding the following after line 14. 2.4. Everyone who by communicating statements other than in private conversation willfully promotes hatred against Indigenous peoples by condoning, denying, or downplaying the Indian residential school system. A is guilty of an indictable offense and liable to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 2 years, or B is guilty of an offense punishable on summary conviction.
Right? So if you question the narrative, they're trying to create a law so that we get 2 years in jail for questioning it. I don't think so. So if this law does pass, I'll be the first one to test it, because I'm not downplaying the residential school system. For one, I'm not breaking that law. But for two, I'm questioning, is there any validity to your claim, right? That's all. That's not hatred. That's not division. That's not bigotry. That's nothing. That's just asking, did it really happen? Are there bodies there? And prove it. So a bunch of us have volunteered. Like there's a whole bunch of us on X have said we would volunteer to go dig to see if to save us hundreds of millions of dollars, because they want to drag it on, right? They want the cash cow to keep going, because that's basically how I look at some of these First Nations. Not all of them. I'm just going to make that clear. It's not all First Nations. We have some really good First Nation territories and chiefs. We have really good ones. But the ones that are propagating the lie or deflecting the question should be held to account, because at the end of the day, what happens if we found a mass burial grave of babies and we found out where they were all from? Wouldn't you want to bring them back home, have some closure for the community? But no, they don't even consider that. But some other territories were. So there's other territories who have went out and dug and they found nothing. Now we have another reserve here in Alberta trying to make a claim that they found bodies in a cemetery, right? So like, what's a cemetery? That's where you're going to find dead bodies, right? Like, come on. And they're using this ruse that just because a cemetery is close to this residential school, that all these bodies are there, which I know another cemetery in Ontario similar to this one, where that's what happened. They were trying to say there was a claim there, but when you actually look at the register, it was all, babies that died from sudden infant or sudden death, infant or whatever that's called. And they got buried. So there was no claim to be put in, right? So this is again, people who are just looking for the cash cow. And Tommy's in the show, so we'll get him up there, man. Right on. What's going on, buddy? Tommy. Oh, no, I can't hear you. Can't hear you. No sound, Tommy. for some reason. That's weird. Let's see. No, he's. We got no sound, bro. No sound. Or did he freeze? I think Tommy froze. Oh no. Let me message him. Tommy, what's going on, buddy? Can you hear me? Well, he's there. Or maybe he's checking to see what's going on. I don't know. No sound. Here, I'll get his attention. That catcher, there we go. Hopefully he sees that. No sound, Tommy. Which is weird. I don't understand why he's not getting any sound at all. Is your mic muted?
Yeah, okay.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah, my mic was muted, but more than that, I didn't have the audio going into my earphone, so I couldn't hear you. Both things weren't working, but I got it working here now.
What kind of microphone are you using? A Shure mic or?
Sure. SM7D is the mic.
Those are good.
Oh yeah, it's top of the line. I'm pumping it into a Rodecaster Pro 2. And then from there, it goes into my OBS software, and then from the OBS software over into StreamYard.
Oh, yeah, you got it looping all the way around, buddy.
Yeah, but I'm also running two different browsers. So, for example, for me to bring stuff online onto my OBS, I'm using Chrome, but then I have problems with audio looping, so I have to have the StreamYard running on a different browser. So that different browser, I use audio cables to bring the audio into a voice meter and then into my headphones. So it's a pretty complicated setup, and I haven't used StreamYard in a while. So when I came out here, I had to change my audio cable setup. But anyways, that's all technical stuff that most people don't care about.
Yeah, no, I hear you, man. I got mine set up too. I had to reconfigure my whole thing because I went back to StreamYard. I was using OBS too, and I don't know. Hey,
I noticed that when you first started there, and when you were on Unacceptable Fringes there, you were having well, not mic troubles, but it was almost like you were using a mic off of something else and not the mic that was right in front of you, because I could hear a big,
no, I had to get rid of that
echo
thing
in there.
No, I got rid of it because I bought those the blue mics. So I got the really expensive one, and for some there was a short in it. So like, you would just like say touch the mic, and it would just like whatever, and the sound was crap. So I went to Long and McQuaid the other day, and I picked up this thing, this Act 1, and I mean it's freaking awesome. So yeah, I just had to switch it up.
Yeah, no, this one sounds like really good. It's got really good bass response there. It's excellent.
Yeah. So how's things, man?
That's all you need. Pretty good. Yeah, we're just, I wanted to be on Unacceptable Fringes podcast there. I even emailed him and told him, hey, get me on there. Like, I'm one of the best guys as a guest because I was actually born in Alberta here. I'm like pro independence, like really pushing the narrative. But I don't, with the smaller channel under 10,000 subs or whatever, you're only going to get a certain audience or certain numbers of audience, so I don't have a huge audience, not compared to him or a lot of the other guys, but still, I've got a voice out here and watch what's going on. I may not be into the technicalities of everything that is going on, but definitely go to the rallies and the stuff that's happening in Sylvan Lake and Red Deer in Edmonton, kind of been around, interviewed a lot of people, and know what's happening. But yeah, unfortunately, he had his show all booked up with guests, so I wasn't able to get on there. But
Yeah, you were on the list. You were on the list. It was just that he had too many people, so he just did whoever first, and then I think he's going to do another one where you might be. I think you're going to be included on that one, because he can only do apparently. Because he thought that he could do a whole whackload of hosts, and he was using StreamYard too, but he was only licensed for I think 10 seats or something.
10,
So,
yeah, that's
yeah.
on that tier, I think. Well, in fact, I don't know. I think that's about all you can put on StreamYard is 10.
Yeah. So I mean, but he did say he's going to do another one with other influencers, so I'm anticipating that one, and I don't think I'll be part of that one. I think you will be, for the people that missed out, because when I talked to him at the convoy, he mentioned it. He's like, "Hey man, like I'm going to be sending the invites," and I even mentioned your name. I'm like, "You should send one to Tommy, man," because I mean, for Edmonton, I said Tommy's done a lot more coverage than I have, and Tommy should be on the show because you also have like I only got like 377 subs on YouTube, but my Facebook's okay. But regardless, you've been out there, you've been covering a lot. I've been following you since I moved here, and
absolutely. Just hang on 1 second. Let's start over again here. I'm going to click the button up on top here where it says stream to your audience. So I'm going to start this stream over to my audience, okay, and then we'll start it all over again. So then you can kind of or I'll introduce you when I click the button here, okay? Just hang on 1 second here.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll log in. Hang on. To do it, I have to log in or something here, so just hang on a second. Let me actually log in here and do that with Google.
Right,
which I do have an account on Google, so let me just do that. Hopefully I don't put my personal information online here. But anyways, yeah, nice to see you. It was good to talk to you the other day there. I saw that you went over to, let's see. Okay, resume here.
Oh, he's going to come back. Yeah. Oh, there he is.
Yeah.
There we go.
Site here. So let me just see if I can stream to my audience here now. Stream. Oh, hang on. It's asking me where to stream to. Okay, I'll go to both Facebook and to YouTube. Oh, hang on here. It's asking me for a title here now. Holy jeez.
It makes you put it. They got to fix that. They should parse the current show's stream information to the guests. Eventually they'll fix that up. Hey, where's Damien? Damien can code that. I'm just kidding.
Okay, hang on here. I'll just call it Alberta Independent Special. How about that?
Yeah, sounds good.
And we will get more people in here. You'll see right away. We'll get a bunch of trolls in here. Could be good, could be bad. Okay, we're saving the changes. Oh, hang on. StreamYard has lost access to your Facebook account. Reconnect. Holy jeez.
Yeah, there I see your YouTube's going.
Yeah, okay. Let's see. I have to log in here. Jeez, this stuff is
it has to be complicated Tommy.
Yeah, why is it so complicated? Verify with verify with Google.
What?
Oh, hang on here. One more thing here and we'll get it going, hopefully. Oh, geez. Now it's got this. Oh, man. It's got this thing where I can barely. Okay, let's forget about Facebook here. Hang on. I'll just
Yeah, I know
switch
your
over there.
YouTube viewers are coming in, so that's cool. They're all saying
Yeah,
hi.
as long as we're on YouTube, that's good enough. Yeah.
Squirrel
Okay.
nuts.
Anyways, hello everyone. Welcome. This is the Tommy Temper Show along with Alberta Radio. We've got Jason on here on my channel. For anybody that's just tuning in here right now, and thanks a lot for inviting me on. Actually, I'm on Jason's panel on your show, so you can be the guy that's running the show there, and you can just ask me whatever questions you want there, and we can talk about Alberta independence or what's happening with whatever you came up with the mayor of Edmonton as well. That's another interesting topic for people
Yeah, I
that
can.
live in Alberta.
Yeah, so yesterday, like I did this earlier on the show, but yesterday I had a meeting with the mayor of Edmonton, Andrew Knack, and for 2 weeks I've been trolling him, right? Trolling him, trolling Aaron Paquette, trolling Noble about the 4,000 homeless that are in Edmonton and the people who've been amputated this spring, and the potential. Well, we're expecting that we're going to lose another 700 Albertans from overdoses this year, and it's really high. So, when you're seeing all these infills and all this stuff the city's doing, and there's no solution for our citizens, but yet we're building all these infills for foreigners, like I have a problem with that. So I trolled him, and then one day I was walking to the store last week, and I got a phone call from Andrew, and he's like, "Hi, Jason, this is the mayor, Andrew Knack, and I'd like to talk to you." And I was like, "What, really?" So the conversation I had on the phone with him, it seemed to be positive because, he was listening to what I had to say in terms of trying to offer solutions to the problem. And it's just simple prioritizing. That's all it is, really. And then removing red tape. So he invited me to meet with him yesterday, and we talked about, the homeless issue, the addictions, the crime. And then he was just trying to sell me off on it's always the same song and dance with politicians. Blame the other levels of government and funding and this and that. And oh, we're doing this and we're doing that. And, so for the fall this year, for this winter coming, we have a long time to get things in place. We have months right now, but we can put a solution in place so that people don't freeze and get amputated. That's number one, and try and get them some transitional housing or something. And,
Right.
he's like, "Oh, we're getting more money to maximize on our warming centers." And this is just Band-Aid solutions. But then when it came to, we talked about, there's families that are on a waiting list for low income housing, and we don't have enough low income housing. So they just received money from the feds in the province, which I'm aware of, and they've issued the builds. So the builds are like, there's going to be 20 50 unit complexes being built here in Edmonton to offset that waiting list, so we can get, let's say, pretty close to half of the homeless rate reduced. But that's still like a year from now, right? So it's still, the problem persists and it drags on. So what I said to him, I said, "Look, man, we have all these infills in Edmonton that are empty. We have units that are 36 units or more. They're not collecting any revenue. That was supposed to be geared to lower the cost of living, and that was part of the agreement with the accelerator fund from the feds. And yet that's not happening." And I told him, I said, "We're housing foreigners. We're housing refugees from other countries, but we can't house our own. I have a problem with that." So, we discussed that, and it really there was no real end solution to the conversation. It was just more trying to sell me on what they have coming down the pipe, and, the obstacles they face and whatever. And then basically telling me that if I can find, private investors and a developer, that the city of Edmonton would pretty much just give me the land, and then have our developers apply for the accelerator fund, and they would get 90% kickback, and then we could build potentially a partnership with the province for provincially funded low rental units using all this scheme, right? And I'm sitting here and I'm sitting on myself, and I'm like, why would we want to do all that? Like, really, the city owns land. We have infrastructure that's like, there's old buildings that are empty that we could just simply just give it a little facelift, put some programs and services into it to tackle the problem and help people. And, he didn't even seem responsive when I said to him that, like, I know this old lady and this old guy here in Edmonton, just they hang around White Avenue. And this guy's First Nations. He's like 65 years old. He's in a wheelchair. He got both his limbs chopped off this spring because of he got frostbite in the winter. And his wife too. Like, his wife lost a limb. So here you have a couple who've lost. The husband lost both his ankles and his feet, and the other one lost her ankle and foot. They recover. Okay, they go through the recovery after amputation, put in a wheelchair and back onto the street. No housing, no nothing. So the question
Wow.
is where's First Nations on this? And secondly, why are we allowing that kind of, like, that's just unacceptable. Totally unacceptable. Like, if you're
Yeah.
amputating people, like, we should be helping people. Like, this is unbelievable. So
Yeah,
it just doesn't
exactly.
seem like
You know what my question is, and this is what part of the problem that I see is, from kind of being in the game and seeing how it works with people with homeward trust, with trying to place people into buildings and stuff like that, is that the people that primarily are out there, and go take a drive around, the Hope Mission area there, 105th, 106th Avenue, just around 100th Street, something like that. By the way, thanks a lot for joining us. We've got a lot of people. Carrie Musings in there. We've got U-Haul. A bunch of other people are sitting in the channel or popping in there and saying hello. So good to see you all in there. But the biggest problem I see is that the people that need to be housed are actually out on the street, and are the people that are doing the fentanyl, the drug, they're being addicted to drugs because obviously, they're out in the cold. There's what else have they got to alleviate the pain, the suffering that they're going through. And those are the kind of people that really don't do well in trying to put them into, suites in an infill project and stuff like that, because
absolutely.
They will absolutely cause chaos, because
Yeah.
they will bring their friends in that are also drug addicted. And, then you've got a whole bunch of people with shopping carts and doing fentanyl and bent over and, all that kind of stuff. It's almost like you can't house those people in normal housing. It has to be either a building with that sort of a government assisted type of a thing, where you've got, somebody in charge and looking after them. And part of the problem right now is that those are the people that really don't or can't or are not allowed to live in, any kind of housing, like homeless centers and stuff like that, because they say to them, well, you can't do drugs in here. You know what I mean? And they go,
Yeah.
well, I want to do the drugs. And, and that's why you see them stooped over outside of the Hope Center. They go in for maybe a meal or something like that, but they end up sleeping on the street. You need to find some alternative type of housing. I don't know, if you're going to allow people to do the drugs, then you better find a place for the people that are drugged up to live. That's
Well,
part of the problem.
yeah, exactly. And I mean, I actually addressed that with him, because I understand what you're saying, and you're absolutely correct about that. We have a complex issue in terms of, okay, how do we deal with the addictions? So I actually looked at what the UCP had put forth in terms of policies to address the issue. So one is we have the capability of putting these people into treatment. Number two, we have a Compassionate Care Act, basically, where law enforcement is supposed to be used in terms of getting the drugs off the streets, getting these people in front of a tribunal to assess if they're charged with possession. We don't want to turn addicts into criminals if we're trying to help them either. But at some point, we have to exercise some type of power of attorney from the court side of it, in terms of, is that individual of sound mind? So it's like you said, when I go down to Chinatown and I'm walking, I'm seeing zombies, right? They're completely, they can't make decisions for themselves.
Yeah.
So
and you can't put those people into a normal apartment.
No, you can't.
It just doesn't work.
But we do have the facilities, right? So if they were to do like a double whammy, so one they would do is prioritize the families who need housing. So senior citizens, families, kids, that kind of thing. Get them into the immediate low rentals where we're not going to have so much of an issue in terms of the addictions part. But the people who are addicted, now we have enough treatment facilities now, and we can convert, because once we reduce by housing all the other folks, then that puts a lot of stress off the system in terms of these warming centers and stuff. So some of those warming centers could be retrofitted into a transitional housing treatment facility. So basically, they would go in front of a tribunal. The cops need to act on this. So the cops need to go in there and just start arresting people. No, it's not an arrest in terms of fully putting a full charge to go through the court process, but what it does is they arrest them, they put them in front of a tribunal with a mental health worker, and they decide at that point, is that person sound of mind to make decisions to get them recovered? And we have that in place now in Alberta. So we should utilize it to get these folks into mandatory treatment so they have an option. Either you're going to go to jail for 6 months, or we'll help you. We'll give you the housing, we'll give you the treatment programs all in one to get you rehabilitated and clean. So right now the success rate's about 40%, they said, and I've actually seen the stats. They are doing this, but we need to emphasize more and put more into it to get them off. Now, the other thing too is organized crime and the gangs that are bringing in the dope on top of the federal government's mandate with the safe supply. So I never understood how the government and the law enforcement turns a blind eye to these gangs. So what I've told the mayor yesterday was, why don't we just run rapid raids, issue a directive, motion to council, to the commissioner, the police commissioner, and say, okay, we're going to go we're just going to ramp up on all the raids, shut down the drug dens, shut down the gangs, shut down the stuff as much as possible, send a message to organized crime that this isn't going to be happening in our city anymore because you're killing people, and really ramp up on that. So we're addressing the issue on a triactor. So basically we're prioritizing the people who need immediate housing on low rentals for families and the senior citizens and disabled. They get housing first. It reduces homeless by 50%. The rest of it is when we start using the court process and police. But while we're doing that, we get the cops to start doing the raids and shut it down because it's an epidemic at this point. Like, I used to turn a blind eye to, like, I'm not going to lie to you, like a long time ago when I was doing stupid shit, like I would turn a blind eye to coke dealers, right? Because, oh, it's not really killing people. And, you know, it's a flavor. It's a one of those drugs where everybody parties with. I didn't really, you know.
Wow.
But
and
at the
if
same
it's a
time,
white collar people that are doing it, well, you go like, hey, let
right?
them do it, but they're not in my face. I don't see it on a daily basis. They're not preventing
Exactly.
me from doing what I do, and they're not the guy that's breaking into my garage or whatever either.
Exactly. So when you look at this, the fentanyl, now, I mean, first it started with Percocets and Oxys from the pharmacies and doctors. That's what created the problem, and they didn't find any solution. Their solution was harm reduction program, right? Totally just killing people. And then when they legalized weed, okay, this is where, because I know this, I was an activist with the 420 committee. I worked with Jody Emery, I worked with Mark Emery, even Dana Larson out in BC. We were all over the country promoting legalization of cannabis. And the next thing you know, we had these left-wing activists who started crying about, well, what about us? We want legalization of cocaine and this and that. And we were like, no, man, like look it, we're gonna start with the weed, and that should be it. I do understand there are some specialized treatment in terms of psychedelics that actually help people with PTSD and depression. I totally understand that, and that should be looked at to utilize. But if we're just going to open it up to the cartel and say, hey, man, just blitz it, and that's what Canada did. So instead of Canada legalizing it, what they did is they legalized it to their own standard and then started throwing these hydromorphs out, right? So everybody was going to the pharmacy. Oh, I'm on a safe supply program. Give me a bunch of hydromorphs, and there's just this power of fentanyl. And then what were they doing? They eventually, the fentanyl got so bad with this carfentanil, the Fetty, and all this stuff that they were getting the safe supply free from the government and then turning around and selling it on the street to supply their fentanyl habit.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right?
And I've seen that, because even in Old Strathcona here, there's a brand new clinic that opened up on 100th Street and Wade Avenue, and that's where they're getting the opioids, the free opioids, and then they'll take the opioids and then sell them on the street to buy the stronger fentanyl, and that's what they're ending up with, you know. And opening up a pharmacy all over town, all you're doing is just spreading the problem all over the place. It's gotten to the point where it's an epidemic, and like I've seen for the longest time, where you ask the police, well, why aren't you arresting the guy that's out there in the street? You know, and the right from the federal level, it's like, small quantities of drugs, 2 grams or less is allowable, and open drug use, and that's being the norm. And you ask the police, well, why don't you arrest these guys that are openly doing drugs on the street? And they go, well, city council tells us, believe me, they've said this numerous times to me, that city council tells the police not to arrest the people on the street. And so then the police tell me, well, if you don't like it, well, go and talk to city council. And then you talk to city council. Well, for me, at least you've had a chance to go and talk with the mayor. But I put phone calls into the mayor's office. I've actually walked in to City Hall, and right there at the front desks, left my name and and phone number and said, give me a phone call back. They don't even bother to phone me back. Same thing with my alderman. Doesn't phone me back whatsoever. So it's like you're being stonewalled by the municipal government, and the police are telling me to talk to them. So it's one big circle jerk going around like this. So for the average citizen, you don't get any kind of response whatsoever. But yet, as you well know, living in the same location, Old Strathcona, where I live here, I can walk a half a block out of my house here and see people doing the fence bent. I've got problems with them breaking into my garage, breaking into my shed. People are talking about cars getting broken into, their apartments are getting broken into. Who the hell do you think is doing this kind of stuff? The small time crime in the area is done by these guys that are out on the street. Get this, I even left a package on my front doorstep. I made a bait package, right? Put a set of headphones in there where I took the earpiece of the headphone out and put a tracker in there, an Apple tracker, put it into an Amazon box and left it on my front doorstep. And within 1 week, it got stolen, right? And where I tracked it to? I tracked it to the opioid drugstore, right? Over on White Avenue. That's where the guys ended up taking it.
I know exactly which one you're talking about too. There was Telescope Productions made a commentary. I just want to answer. Opioids are not psychedelics. I wasn't saying opioids were psychedelics. What I was saying was that during our lobbying to legalize cannabis, okay, so I'm part of the 420 committee for Canada.
By the way, Telescope is into helping people, and he's into that whole thing with
I just want to I just wanted to clarify what I meant. What I was saying is when we were campaigning for legalizing cannabis, okay, the left-wing activists were screaming about legalizing some opioids and also legalizing psychedelics with the microdosing. Now, I know that opiates are not part of psychedelics. I know that because I've ran my own treatment program as well, and I help people recover. I'm in total support of microdosing, mushrooms or MDMA, because
something that might help somebody that has
I've
a psychological problem. Yeah,
exactly. Because
I agree with that too.
Yeah, I've seen this. I've seen the research study papers on those and how they microdose and how it's helped people with like severe depression and stuff. So it actually helps, and that's where I would like to see the government look at natural things that grow, like shrooms and that. I mean, MDA is synthesized, but MDMA also, at the microdosing level, does help with people with extreme PTSD and depression. So when it's regulated in a controlled environment, of course, I'll support it if it's helping the people. But I don't like this opioid thing where they've doubled down and started, we're going to give a free supply of hydromorphs and a free supply of this and that. I mean, even to the point in Ontario, they were giving out morphine to people. Like, I couldn't believe it. Like, this one kid, he was like 22 years old that I met on the street. Like, he passed away from an overdose. But he had came to me one day and he's like, oh, look, I got a prescription of morphine from my doctor. I'm like, what? For what? Right? Like, it's just unbelievable. So I just wanted to, clarify that to Telescope.
Well, what do you think is the solution for? Okay, if you can, with the people that are out on the street, and you see this all over the place. You see it in California, you see it in Philadelphia, you see it everywhere where they're doing the fent bent and they're out there. So you're going to be able to bring some of those people into a treatment program. And I know Alberta is pretty good for putting treatment programs together and stuff like that. So you tell the police, hey, arrest these people. And when they go in front of the judge says, okay, are you willing to go into a program? And the guy goes, yeah, okay. But what do you do about the other people that aren't going to want to go into a program or want to doing the drugs, and they're out on the street and they're basically living in tent cities and 30 below up here in Canada, and they're, like you say, they're losing limbs and all kind of stuff like that. Like, you can't just let those people live outdoors like that. You have to be able to find some kind of a housing for them. And if they're going to do drugs, I guess you have to let them do the drugs, but you still at least have to be compassionate enough to, put them into some kind of housing and not have them just lying out on the street. And, hey, doesn't matter if it's middle of the winter or even like right now, it's a hardship. It's hard on those people. What do you do to those people? What do you provide for them?
Well, for me, like I used to, okay, I was one of those people before that were empathetic to, I don't want to criminalize addicts and stuff like that. But let's just recap a bit. So they introduced harm reduction in 2015 at the BC meeting with Big Pharma and Sackler. Okay, that's how this all started. And immediately since they rolled it out, I mean, bodies started dropping. The epidemic became worse. People were just, I mean, it was just it's worse now than it ever was.
Wasn't it harm reduction giving them drugs, basically?
Well, they were giving them the tools to use and promoting the use, right? So I actually see, like when I was living on the streets, and then this was in 2015, I was living on the streets for a couple months, and I'm not shitting you, man. The harm reduction workers were coming out telling the users, oh, instead of smoking your patches and stuff, you can do this, and it would be much safer to inject with a needle. They actually promoted this to the users on the streets. So as I was watching the bodies drop over the years, in 2017, I was consulted by Neil Magnuson, and Neil had his little RV parked on Hastings, in downtown Hastings, like right on Hastings, right in front of the Insight Center. And we had an initiative, it's called the Cannabis Substitution Project. So instead of promoting smoking weed, we'd give them high dose edibles. They would come in the morning, come in the afternoon, or come in the evening. They'd get 3 edibles a day, and it would prevent them from shooting up. And we were saving lives. So when Neil told me about his program, I'm like, okay, well, we're seeing this happening in Ontario. How can I bring this to Ontario? So he gave me all the stuff. I actually took a course with Stanford Medical to make me, I took the opiate tapering program to understand how aggregates work, understand how the opiates work with the receptors, everything. So I applied that, and we started our own in-house treatment program under Sudbury 420. So I was watching people just become intravenous users overnight. This is how bad it was getting in Ontario. Just overnight, people started shooting up and people started dying. So I started approaching people in the downtown core, and I said, listen, I'm giving you guys high dose edibles for free. Here's a gummy, here's a sucker, here's brownies, whatever. And we'd give it to them just for free. And so that ended up, we took on 60 clients over a year. And out of the 60s, 52 recovered. 52 stopped shooting up. They, some of them went back to school and re-educated themselves and got back into work. Some of them are still financially strapped, whatever, but they're not using. But the rest of them that didn't make it are dead. They died from overdoses. So what we did is we put it all together in a presentation. We brought it to the Ford government, to Doug Ford. And I had asked both the provincial and federal governments under Trudeau that they give us an exemption for this program, just like they were doing Dana Larson for the microdosing coca tea, right? And all these other psychedelic microdosing that he was doing. He got an exemption for that. So I wanted the same exemption. And Dana backed me on this. So no exemption. The Doug Ford government ignored us. Like, that's typical LibCon stuff. So he ignored us. The provincial government or the federal government ignored us. And the next thing you know, the left-wing activists started targeting us because they were getting the funding to keep the problem going, paying themselves salaries with these non-for-profits. And because I was saving lives and harping on them about it, I became target number one. So they actually tried to get me raided and all this stuff, right? Like, it was so unbelievable. But that is how, when you see,
Terrible.
Yeah, that's when you see like what's the driving force behind this whole industry, and it's money. So like, it's like a lot of us, like the Van City, I'm friends with Van City out in Vancouver. So he does a lot of coverage. He goes out, and we all call them poverty pimps. It's a poverty industry now. And that's where, I looked at all the provinces and cities, and I said, there's got to be a correlating factor to this. So there is actually. It's every Liberal and NDP city, okay, are hard hit by this epidemic. They don't care. They're just profiteering not-for-profits. They get the money from the feds and the provincial government. 95% pays them salaries, and the rest goes to the problem. So it just keeps going, right? Yeah. And I'm glad Alberta took a role this year, because Alberta's the only province in Canada that changed the regulation this year. So this year here, instead of sending hundreds of $1 million to one Homeward Trust, and then Homeward Trust dispenses it out to the 28 agencies in Edmonton. That doesn't happen anymore. So there's direct transparency now with the provincial government in terms of when they give these organizations money, they have to be accountable for it. They have to show that it's a 50-50, that yes, some money will go to overhead expenses and stuff, but at least 50% of those funds go to help the problem. So now you're seeing non-for-profits close, and then they're complaining, well, we don't have enough money to keep. Well, no, it's because you're losing your paycheck is what you're doing off the backs of addicts. Right. So
something has to happen to what's happening, because I go downtown and I see literally, I can do a quick count of 500 people that are just laying out there in the streets and are doing the fent bent. It's and the police, they've come up with this so-called crackdown, right? I don't know if you know about that in downtown Edmonton, because again, the same thing. You've got so many people drugged up all over downtown. It doesn't matter where you go. You'll see people in little enclaves and whatever, doing drugs and stuff like that. And people are afraid to go downtown. They say it. They go, hey, I don't want to go there. I'll just shop at my little local, strip mall or something like that, and avoid going to places where there's a lot of drug addiction. Part of the problem is that they're pretty much harmless when they're sitting there like doing their thing, but it seems like when they start coming down, they start to get very aggressive and start attacking people, or yelling at people, or going berserk and stuff like that. And that's why people don't want to avoid the downtown area. Just hang on. Telescope is in the chat there saying drop the link. He went to John Hopkins, did some research there with them. He wants to come up on the panel. Do you want him to come up here?
Give him the link there that you got. Or here, actually, I'll send you. Does it give me another link?
Well, I can't drop it to him, but I can go over in my chat and just drop it over there. So just hang on a second.
Yeah, it's the same link I gave you.
Drop the link in the chat there, Telescope, so you can hit that StreamYard link there if you want to come up here. But but again, my problem is the policing, and really, I've seen what they've done where the police go, they claim they're cracking down. But I've actually witnessed them actually cracking down on the drug addicts that are downtown there. And really, all they do is they just push them away from Churchill Square or in front of City Hall to make City Hall look a little bit better. But they don't arrest anyone. They'll actually take if they have booze, for example, they'll just pour the can of booze out. No arrest for illegal consumption. Doing the drugs and stuff like that, they don't do anything. They don't take anything away from anybody. They don't arrest anybody. They just say, move along. Can you guys move out of this area? Don't, make this little area around City Hall look good. But they're still, you go over to 106th Avenue and 100th Street. Like I said, there's 500 there, and they're not doing anything with anybody over there. And, there is nothing or no place for them to go. And obviously the prisons must be completely full because they don't want to be putting more people in prison. They don't make any arrests. And the police say, well, even if I do arrest somebody, it's like they go in front of a judge and then they're right back out in the street again. They don't go to jail or anything like that. And I don't think sending them to jail is really the solution. But no, what is the solution for all these people? I don't know. Do you round them up and get someplace up northern Alberta, some little town somewhere where you send them,
we're sounding like
let
Nazis.
them all do their drugs up there. I don't know. I
don't think that's a solution, but I think we need to be hard on with law enforcement in the courts. Because this is how I look at it. I'm going to bring Telescope in there in a second. I look at it this way: we've invested hundreds of millions of dollars into harm reduction to reduce the use, reduce the problem, get people into treatment to curb this epidemic. Now, they've had over a decade to do this with no results showing that it works. Now, we're at a point where it's spilling over, and it's an epidemic in such a way that hundreds of people are dying every year in every city that's hard hit with this. So I'm at the point now where it's like, okay, well, Alberta presented a law that says that they'll put them in front of a tribunal. And part of me says, okay, I'm against the idea, but then I'm sort of pro the idea, because at some point, what do we got to do? We got to put our foot down. So if hypothetically, if it was to have a good working plan, it has to be fair. So one is, if we're gonna start picking up addicts off the streets and then tell them that you have an option, either you're going to go to treatment or we're going to incarcerate you, then at the same time, we need to make sure that law enforcement's doing the rapid raids on organized crime to shut down these fentanyl dealers and labs. Because then this way here, if you shut down the problem with law enforcement and actually bring those criminals to justice, then you're going to reduce the epidemic. And that is real true harm reduction in a sense, right? I'm in agreement where we shouldn't be criminalizing addicts, but we got to do something. And I think we need to put our foot down temporarily, just for the time being, to reduce it to a point where we can get people recovered. I'm going to bring Telescope in here, and
yeah, that's part of it for sure.
Welcome on board, buddy. And so what's your real name? What's your first name? Or he's muted too.
Telly.
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 All right.
Telly.
How's it going, man?
Yeah, some of us don't use our real names online here.
No, I completely disagree. I completely disagree with you. I've worked with Johns Hopkins University, so which is the #1 research facility. I mean, it used to be, I guess, before it got Doge cut the fucking back, and I lost my job over it. So I mean, I'm not afraid to say it. But no, it got Doge cut the fucking back, and I work for the School of Public Health.
Doge with the American Donald Trump thing there, where they were cutting back on excess of expenditures.
Yeah. I'm an American. Yeah. Thank you, Tommy. I am an American.
So what's your take on a solution then? What do you think we should do?
Yeah. How do we clean up the streets, basically?
Yeah, Tommy, I would literally have to go out and find drug users off the fucking streets and give them interviews and stuff. I mean, luckily, I got really good at doing this online shit. That it made me better of doing interviews with people. Oddly enough, but outside of it, harm reduction does benefit society. It does lessen the amount of drug use in society. It does bring people into social not social behavioral, but complexes that they wouldn't normally be open to use at all. So I would use a lot of harm reduction communities when I would do interviews. Now when doing nice outside, I would just interview people outside, but when in the winter.
I actually did that years ago when I first started advocating, because
or the fall or something.
Yeah, I actually went and did the interviews myself in Ontario with addicts before, and the response I got from folks was the harm reduction folks weren't offering them and the ability to get treatment. They would complain about that, and when I have addicts who are also friends, street family, because I lived on the streets, and I started advocating because my friends were bodies were dropping, man. And a lot of us were like, well, what are we going to do about this? And so I sat back and I actually tried to educate myself, seeing exactly what the harm reduction program was all about. And some of what you say, yes, is true. But now, that was in 2015 and when they were running this in Ontario and across the country here in Canada. But the problem is harm reduction is supposed to reduce the users. It's supposed to bring down the addiction level, the overdoses, the deaths, the usage itself. but it hasn't done that in Canada. In the United States, you guys have a lot better rule sets and the way you guys handle it. And I've seen the statistics in the States where it's dropped, but in Canada, it's just going up, and more people are dying. So, when they do the total death count this year for just opiates, it's over 150,000 citizens that have died. So my argument now is, okay, we've given the ability for these organizations to run wild with their program and anticipating that it would reduce the epidemic, but it's not in Canada. It's actually, it's quadrupled down. So when you look at that and you say, okay, well, if your harm reduction program is supposed to, the priority is to reduce the use, reduce the epidemic, but it's not, then you know that something's broken. Something's not working, because we got to remember, reduction comes from the word reduce. And they get millions, hundreds of millions of dollars of government funding to run these programs. So if it's not showing any improvement, then the program's not working. And we can't say that, when they roll out the program and you give them a couple years to run with it, of course, we need a couple years to see what kind of statistics we're going to gain out of that if we're actually reducing the problem. But this has been almost 15 years of a program that's been running wild in Canada, where they actually give safe supplies of hydromorph and other different types of drugs that are pretty harmful, that shouldn't be even given to these people, but they do it. And it's full blown. It's like, so I look at it now like it's a killing campaign. Like, we're killing our citizens. And so that's how I look at it. But at the same time, I'm in agreement with you, Telly. Like, we need to be more proactive in terms of how we address it, how we can reduce the problem. I just don't think that the current harm reduction programs in Canada, they're different than the United States now. The United States has done a lot of great work. I commend you guys for reducing the overdose deaths and saving lives out there, because you guys do better. But Canada, it's like, if you say to the government of Canada, hey, look at what the States is doing, they're doing good. No, we can't have that. That's what the federal government of Canada does. And then they'll roll out their own programs that just keeps it worse. And then when you look at where the money is going, so in Canada, how it's funded, it's not funded by the private sector. It's all funded by the federal, provincial, and municipal governments here. And hundreds of millions of dollars go to these organizations, and they're all paying themselves salaries. I used to be in support of safe injection sites at one time, until I read a report about Lethbridge. So Insight is a non-for-profit company that is certified by the federal government of Canada and Health Canada. And, they were giving a safe space for people to use, so to prevent overdose deaths, right, with supervision. I agreed that, because there were too many people dying. But when the report came out and it showed that the funding for this Insight building that they had here in Lethbridge, the provincial government of Alberta gave them $10.9 million in funding in 1 year. Okay, in 1 year they got $10.9 million. And then when they got a fiscal analysis done by KPMG in the province, they found out that $7.9 million went to paid salary, and then the rest of it was they couldn't explain extra expenditures, and the left of it, like, there was like 2.5% of those funds went to help the problem. And that was just, they were just keeping the Insights place open, and then purchasing needles from public health to keep it going. So they shut it down, because with that site also created a lot of complexities in the community, where the crime rate shot up 400%. Overdose deaths.
Brought everything right to that area. That's all it did.
And at the center itself, okay, the Insight Center, and it's the same story with the one on Hastings in Vancouver. It's the same exact story. The death rate went up. So how can harm reduction be successful in Canada if we're not reducing everything? And it's just, it's increasing the deaths and overdoses. So
what it's doing, instead of reducing, is, the term harm reduction is actually enabling, you're enabling the users and keeping them going, instead of them getting, some help for what they're into. The other thing is that the whole thing is opening up these drugstores, and the drugstores are giving out free opioids, and they're opening up the drugstores all over the place, and that's just plain spreading the problem all over the place, so to where you've got drug addicts hanging out in front of these opioid centers, just basically lying out there, where you never saw that happening before, and where you open them up all over the city. you then spread the drug problem all over the city, and then the police don't do anything about it, and it's a hellhole. You're
Oh
just
yeah.
making the problem worse than it ever was before. And my biggest thing is that I see people laying all over the place where I didn't see that happening before. Like my neighborhood has gone to hell in a handbag, and it used to be a really nice place. We didn't have problems back in the old days, before the drugs, before pot, before any of that stuff. You'd have the drunks. You'd have one part of the city where people were alcoholics, and you had the bars, and the drunks were lying on the side of the street, and that's all that you saw. And then you had pot come in, but of course pot didn't have people lying all over the place. It was just people smoking up and passing out on their couch or something like that. Yeah. But the hard drugs is something completely different, and the fentanyl is like the worst of the worst of the worst, and it is like brought society right down to its knees. And you have to do something with these people. My biggest thing is, I don't want to see people looking for their next fix out there in my neighborhood. You need to do something where you're gonna say, hey, look, you're doing something illegal, arrest them, and then do something with them at that point. Put them into some kind of a treatment program. Or if they, and you're not going to be able to get everyone into a treatment program. You have to be able to get them into a place where they're safe and not going to die. Like if they're doing drugs and they want to do drugs, and you're allowing them to do drugs, and society is saying, hey, that's okay, just okay, do it, but don't do it in my face. Do it somewhere where it's like a huge building where it's all a bunch of drug addicts in that building, and give them the free drugs so that they don't have to go out and rob, steal, and cause havoc in the neighborhood. And keep it away from a neighborhood. Go into some industrial area or some town out somewhere, and have it like the chaos zombie town or something like that. I don't know, but what's happening right now is just plain not acceptable.
Absolutely.
It can't continue.
Here's something. So when I started advocating about this, the left, the people that were part of the public health unit and these non-for-profits in Ontario started attacking me, saying that I was inexperienced about addictions. Okay. Not realizing that I was an addict once. I did go to treatment. The first time wasn't successful for me, but it was successful the second time. I stopped doing all the hard stuff, and I haven't touched any hard stuff in over 20 years. So when they started coming after me and saying, oh, you need to educate yourself, I actually went and took a treatment program. And it was specialized to opiates and aggregates. Now, when I say aggregates, I'm talking about methadone and Suboxone. And Tommy, you mentioned about the pharmacies giving out free drugs and stuff. And those pharmacies are also involved in the aggregate business industry. So they are the ones that are providing methadone drinks and Suboxone to the users. And the problem I have with this is this.
Right.
During my program, like my course that I took with Stanford, our professor explained to us about the opiate tapering program and how it really works, and how you're supposed to use methadone or Suboxone to get people off and wean them off. And it's not. So the way he explained to me was this: if you have an intense user that's addicted to a fentanyl or other types of opiates or whatever, it's really hard. So you have to put them on an aggregate, which is methadone. Now, some of these in Canada versus the United States, the doctors involved in the methadone clinics are prescribing methadone at such a high rate. I had users, that were part of my program because we got them off methadone. They were on a 3-year prescription at 150 milligrams of methadone a day. That blitzes a person's mind because there's side effects to that too, long term. Now, part of my treatment program I took, our professors are saying, look, aggregates are good. You're only supposed to use them from 6 months to a year, and then that's how you're going to get them off cold turkey. So that's how they got a lot of folks in the States off those drugs using that. But then you have pharmacists and these doctors who are abusing it, and they manipulate their patients. Like in some cases I had with a couple of our clients was, here's an example. So this one lady that was our client, she was an older lady. She was an addict for a long time with opiates, and then she went on the methadone program. Now, but when she came to us, she was on year 3 of being on the methadone program, and she really wanted to stop taking it. So we increased her dosage on our edibles, but then we were also studying the science of cannabis and cannabinoids, and we found out that there was an effective treatment that was helping people with epilepsy. So opiates and epilepsy, the brain receptors work as sort of the same. And what we found out was the teas that were treating these epileptic people from not having seizures at all. We were like, well, let's try this for the opiates and see if it'll sustain or reduce the cravings or whatever, right? And sure enough, like we put this one, we test trial this lady. She was drinking 5 teas a day. So each tea bag consists about 400 milligrams of THC and CBD full spectrum. Okay, so, and what we're doing is we're using the plant base itself with a compound, a binding agent, so that it breaks down in the liver. And immediately we've seen results. So within 6 months of her being with us, she completely stopped taking her methadone. Now, the thing is the way they were doing it is the pharmacist would deliver her methadone drinks to her for the week. So she'd have a bunch of bottles, a case of bottles of methadone. That's what they were doing. So I said to her, what she asked me one day, she's like, Jay, she goes, I'm not drinking my methadone anymore. When she finally came and told us that, I said, okay. She goes, I said, okay, well, what do you want to do now? Like, we're going to go to the next step. And she's like, well, I need to return all these bottles of methadone. I can't just dump them down my toilet, So I said to her, I said, listen, I said, take the bottles and bring them back to the methadone clinic and tell your doctor that you're working with us. I am certified in addictions, and that we've found an alternative for you not to take the methadone anymore, because she was like months without taking it, right? So she goes to the doctor, and she brings the things back, and then the doctor flipped his lid on her, like complete. I'm calling your psychologist, and we're gonna cancel this treatment, and just screw her over to force her to continue to take methadone. And when I found out about this, well, of course,
was it that he wanted to have a patient because he's making money off the patient?
Absolutely, for every methadone script they pay that is prescribed, for every drink is $75 profit to a commission to the doctor who writes the script. It's like remember the pill farms in the States where everybody that was writing scripts were making huge cash cow off the commission. Well, they were doing it with methadone. They're doing that here in Canada with methadone and Suboxone. So it's a big issue. So what do I do, right? Like, I'm a content creator, and I was an advocate, an activist at the time. So I stood in front of the methadone clinic doing a live, just exposing this shit. And that pissed off the doctors. I got cautioned by the police not to go on property anymore. But what happened was all the people that were working with us, that I got them to return the drinks, didn't get penalized after. It took us to expose that methadone clinic for what they were doing, abusing their role as a doctor, their Hippocratic oath. They're just completely disregarding it for profit. So he stopped doing that with our clients, but he was still doing it with other clients. So like, even friends that I knew that were living on the street, like my buddy Emery, like one day he said to me, he's like, I'm supposed to go to the clinic and get my drink today. So I'm going to go there and tell him I don't want my drink. And he does that, and they cut him off right away. Well, too bad then. It's just, so you tell me there's compassion there. There's absolutely nothing. It's a money game. So in Canada right now, we have compounded problems where not only the police not doing their job by shutting down organized crime and pushing in the labs and all that, we have a really poor way of dealing with the addictions problem by continuing to enable them by giving them tools to get high with all the time, and then the free safe supply. And then we have a problem with the methadone clinics, who are supposed to be there to help these folks transition to be healthier and get off the opiates and then eventually get off the methadone, but that's not happening. So when you have credible professors that are teaching an addictions program telling you that people that go get at the aggregates to get weaned off the opiates, and they're prescribed methadone or Suboxone, they shouldn't be on those drugs for more than a year, and then you should taper them off cold turkey, right? With all the programs and treatment and with transitional programs. But they don't do that in Canada at all. Canada is what we're doing is we're profiteering off the backs of the vulnerable, whether it's the homeless, the addicts, whatever. and we're prioritizing all the service and programs to other people that are not even Canadian. So, when you look at the whole dynamic, it's a killing machine. Like harm
Yeah.
reduction, I've always said
The harm reduction and the basically getting people off the street and onto programs is one thing, but it's obviously not working, because otherwise
Yeah.
I wouldn't be seeing 500 people doing what appears to be fentanyl right out on the street and living out on the street. What do we do about those people that are out there and they're dying out in the street too? Like in the summertime, maybe not so much, but when it starts getting cold and 20 below and whatever, that's when people are losing limbs and dying. What do you do about all those people that you're not going to be able to help, that are not in the programs and are doing the drugs? What do we do about them?
Well, absolutely. I mean, we should be helping them, and and they're not doing nothing, right? Like we need to do better. I know. At least I can say one thing.
Well, you know
At
what?
least,
There was a couple of years ago, they opened up the convention center. Remember, in the middle of winter, and
yeah,
they
yeah.
had a whole bunch of people go in there. But people say that they just tried destroying it, or destroyed the convention center, or did damage to it, or whatever. And for whatever reason, maybe that's the reason that they never did that before. So I don't know. There's got to be somewhere where you can house these people, put these people, and it's not going to be a regular apartment building, because they can't.
No.
They don't. They don't jive with everybody else in the building, and you'll have like tons and tons of complaints. You'll have the police going there all the time, whatever. You got to have some kind of a building, some kind of an arena, something where you can put the drug addicts and let them do their thing, where they're not out there in the streets dying.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I got on the screen right now, and talking about people profiteering off the backs of the dead. So back in the early, I think it was in the late '90s, early 2000s, British Columbia did a ceremony, a memorial for all the people who died from overdoses through shooting up and all these hard drugs, and they had I think it was like 2,000 crosses at one of the parks, and it was just temporary thing, just to as a memorial.
Yeah.
And Sudbury, Ontario, where I was living in 2018, they started this Cross for Change, basically copying what BC was doing. They brought all the BC problems into Sudbury, created the problem, and then this lady Sandal, she starts putting up these crosses for changes right in front of City Hall. Okay, right at the corner of an intersection in front of City Hall, in front of the mayor's window. And still to this day, okay, this thing remains. And I mean, it's just, like you imagine being a mayor, going to work every day, and you're seeing all those crosses and just completely ignoring it for like what, 2 terms now? It's three municipal terms now, and just ignore it. And it's like, so for me, I did some digging on the people who were behind the Crosses for Change. And then I found out that for every person who died of opiates and wanted their cross there, she was charging them money, right? I'm going to charge you for it. And I'm like, okay, more profiteering. And then she's like right involved. Now this Crosses for Change right here, it's said that there's 300 crosses now in the city of Sudbury for opiate overdose deaths. And the population of that city, Tommy, is 170,000 people. They distribute 2 million needles a year in a city for 170,000. Now, get this. Here, want to hear a really whack stat? The city of Toronto, which is like 7 million, 8 million people, distribute 1.7 million needles for the base users for that city. So how does a small city like that get 2 million needles pumped into the city, killing people like mad? They have the highest opiate death rate in Canada right now. For that city, the highest, and nobody's doing nothing about it. Nothing.
And it seems that the people that are addicted are the people that are basically, they've lost their home, they've lost their job, they're out in the street, they've got like a no will to live anymore, so they get involved in drugs to sort of pacify their way of life, and to take the everything away from they don't have to worry about anything. No worries about anything, because when you're high on drugs, it's you're in la la land, and that's who the people are. It's not like the people that are working that are involved in this stuff. And you had a meeting with the mayor of Edmonton yesterday. Was there anything like that you can tell us from that meeting that you can see where the mayor is, working on trying to solve the problem of the people. I call them drug addicts. You may call them homeless people, but let's face it, it's the homeless people that are out in the streets that end up becoming the drug addicts, and
Yeah.
that's who we see doing the doing the fentanyl and stuff like that. What is the mayor of Edmonton doing about those people, about that problem?
Nothing. I mean, it's the same song and dance from the mayor. It was, we have these projects that are coming. We have, like, it's the same thing. Like, I've been hearing the same excuse from every politician since 2017 when I went after them about this. And I said, what is your solution? And then when it was like 2020 during COVID, I doubled down on going after them, and they didn't care. Oh, we're under lockdown. So, like, they just didn't care. And then now there's no COVID, there's no lockdowns. Like, what are you going to do about it? And it's just the same thing. Oh, we got programs. We need more funding. We need more money. We need this. But yet we have all the stuff right there that we could utilize. Just remove the red tape, stop being ignorant, and just do it. But it's unbelievable, because I hit him with this. This is what I said to the mayor. I said, why don't we put the system to the test? I said, we have the UCP government that just presented us these new acts, the Treatment Act, the Compassionate Recovery Care, all this stuff that's supposed to that would reduce it, because there's already showing a drop in overdose rates. But we need to implement it full out, right? So that includes with law enforcement. And I said, municipalities hand over the cops every year this huge budget to the police. They get all these new fancy toys. They're armed more than our military. But yet they're not going after organized crime. They're not shutting down the labs. They're not doing nothing about it. So why don't we put them to the test and use the mandate from the province to do it? And it was in one ear out the other. Yeah.
Well, and likewise, why can't they arrest the drug dealers? Because if you've got
that's what I
all
wanted
these
to do.
people out on the street that are
Yeah.
doing drugs, it's not that difficult to watch them, send the police out there undercover or whatever, and watch them and find out who is the guy that's selling the drugs on the small scale. Okay.
the cops
and then
know.
once you
They
arrest
know.
that guy, then you go, okay, tell us who it is that you're getting the drugs from, and we'll give you a plea bargain, and not send you to jail or whatever, and just work your way up till you find out where is that drug lab. And but they're not doing that. They're not arresting the small time drug dealers. They're not doing their legwork, and whatever. And you've got more and more people, it seems, the cartels moving into Canada doing, and I've watched shows on that too, where they're showing and talking about the cartels are the ones that are coming into Canada because the laws are so lax in Canada that they can set up shop, get their people doing their stuff, and even if they do get taken down, they're just right in there with another one. And you've got a lot of the immigrants that are coming into Canada where they're doing this. You've got the East Indian people, you've got the Chinese cartels, the triads,
the Lebanese cartels in Ottawa that are pushing the pills.
Exactly.
I know about
and
it,
they're specifically moving into Canada because of our lax drug laws. So part of the problem is the liberals, right? And because they're the ones that have lessened the drug laws in Canada to where it's like a slap on the wrist if whatever, a couple of years in jail or something like that for operating a drug lab. It's ridiculous.
Oh, absolutely. Like, I actually here's something which was completely ridiculous that happened to a friend of mine. So before I came back home to Alberta, when I was in Ontario, I was working with First Nations because after we got screwed by the government. So what happened is when the government made cannabis legalized, Ontario had a lottery for us to open up shops. So there was 4 of us who had our grow license, and we wanted to, from seed to product, but be regulated and licensed under the federal government so that we can open up a shop. So
is this
each one of us,
before they legalized pot in Canada?
No, this is right after they legalized pot. So
okay.
so 4 of us put up $50,000 of our own money each. Okay, so that's $200,000. We apply, we go through the inspection, we're ready to go. And then because this foreigner from the Middle East, Mohammed, he owns Spirit Leaf, and he decided to apply, was it 250 applications to 13 addresses, manipulating the lottery in Ontario. Now, when you put up the money for the deposit for your application, it's non-refundable. If they find a means where, it's something you can't get refunded. So this is a risk at the same time. So what happens is this guy manipulates the lottery. We all lose our money, and it wasn't just us. It was a whole bunch of Ontarians that lost their money in this lottery scheme for the cannabis shops. So a lot of us, we banded together because a lot of us were either First Nations or Métis, and we said, you know what? Let's go approach the First Nations that have cannabis shops in Tyendinaga. So we did that, and then we started supplying the shops. Now, because the Algonquins, where they weren't being bothered by the RCMP anymore or the OPP or anything, we were like, okay, well, maybe we could do this in Northern Ontario with the reserves on Manitoulin Island and the reserves up north. So my buddy opens up his shop. Now, he operated for a couple months, and the next thing you know, the RCMP comes on the reserve with the local OPP and they arrest him, raid the shop without permission from the chief, by the way, and he goes to jail and he's in holding. So we go to his bail hearing, and there's a bunch of us cannabis activists there and shop owners and stuff. We're all there for support and this. And during the court proceeding, there was this other individual who got busted with fentanyl. Now, he had enough fentanyl to kill 20,000 people in Sudbury. They give him a $500 self-recog bail and let him go. And then my buddy had to put up $65,000 of bail money with 3 sureties, and he's First Nations. So once we realized that there was such an imbalance of justice, we were like, screw this. That's when all the chiefs worked together with us, and we imposed self-governance on the First Nation territories in Ontario, so the feds can't come in and raid us anymore. Now, here in Alberta, I'd like to see that happen here because, believe it or not, in the areas where these shops are, you have basically next to no opiate addictions. I watched Tyendinaga Reserve, went from a heavily addicted, alcoholic, opiate-addicted population. And then when we started opening up the cannabis shops and a cannabis lounge, and now we have over 100 shops in Thai, the rate of opiate addictions and alcoholism dropped dramatically. I mean, so dramatically, like it's next to nothing. So what did we do after that? Well, in Brantford, the opiate addictions was getting bad, and Brantford's right next door on the border of Oshkowen, Six Nations, which Six Nations is part of Tyendinaga as well. So we all reached out to everybody, and we had somebody open up a cannabis lounge. But what we did is we went and got permission by the conservative biased municipal government, who allowed us a trial. So they gave us a permit for 2 years to operate this cannabis lounge where we could serve edibles, where we could sell weed. Everybody can come in and smoke weed. And the object of the game for us was to reduce the opiate addictions by offering free edibles. And it was successful. It dropped 35%, the opiate addictions in that area, just for that area where the cannabis lounge was. And then the next thing you know, bro, here comes a Liberal, right? Because it was in municipal elections. And here comes a Liberal. A Liberal gets elected into municipal government as the new mayor and new council, and immediately shut us down. Then guess what happened? Boom. Out of control, zombies everywhere, right? So I'm not saying that cannabis is a cure-all, but it definitely showed progress in terms of reducing the problem, right?
Yeah. Well, personally, I'd rather see that than a bunch of zombies all over the place. So hang on. Speaking of First Nations, before I went live, you were talking a little bit about a certain person there that you know a little bit about by the name of Queenie, who's been like bad-mouthing a lot of people on the internet, including me, calling me racist and all kind of stuff out there, which I don't particularly like. I don't like, I like to be positive about everybody. But what do you know about Queenie that you can tell our audience here?
Okay, so I'll explain how. I'll go through it again. How I met
what's
Queenie,
your involvement with her, and how do you know her?
Yeah, so how I met Queenie initially was, like some people know, I was one of the organizers for the Freedom Convoy, and then when Pat got out of jail and he moved back to Alberta, he held a rodeo to raise funds for his courts, right? So
I was at that rodeo, as a matter of fact.
Yeah. So Pat asked me if I wanted to come and help work it, so I did. I was the one that was parking all the trailers. So as I was there, somebody came up to me and said, "Hey, we're planning to do another convoy protest, whatever, and you should come and meet everybody." So okay, and that's how I met Queenie. I met her because where we were camping, her trailer was right beside us, pretty much. So Queenie comes out and she starts talking about, she's a descendant of Louis Riel and all this stuff, and Red River, and I'm like, oh really, and I'm like, okay, well, like I'm an actual Goulet. My dad is a Goulet, and he's a direct descendant of the Israel bloodline, and his grandfather was Roger, and my dad's name's Roger. So anyways, so I thought, with her telling me this, that okay, well maybe she is a far off cousin. That's how it went. So the whole time I thought, okay, well maybe she's related to me. And then all of a sudden I seen her attacking you, and then she come after me because she doesn't like my view on separatism and all this other stuff. And then she started calling me names and everything. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to ask my family, and I'm just going to go. And those of us who are bloodline of the Goulet family or the Riel family have a direct connection to the Métis Association in Manitoba. We can call and verify names and stuff, right? So I got fed up with her crap, and then it was the last live you had where I was on, and she was like chirping off, and then I went on this other guy's live, this 420 guy that was in Ontario, and he started slamming me too, making up shit that he doesn't even know me, right? He's just making up shit, and I'm like, really, guys? Okay, then you know what? If you guys are gonna be liars and push your bullshit, I'm gonna profile you. I'm gonna fucking check you out. So I made a phone call to my family. And I asked my aunt, I said, can you tell me if, this person is actually related to us, because she's making a claim that she's a descendant of ours, like she's on the same bloodline. So I gave her Queenie's information, and she actually went in person to St. Boniface and looked at the registry, because all our lineages are recorded there. And sure enough, Queenie's not even related to Elzéar Goulet. She's full of shit, right? So this whole thing, all her, like what she's been doing, like she pretends she's your friend, and then she snaps, but what I've realized is she's a compulsive liar. Everything she's saying about her lineage, she can't even prove it. I've asked her, prove it. I can prove mine. I have my stuff. I can prove it, right? And I mean, my great grandfather, who is Elzéar's son, is buried like a few plots away from Louis Riel at St. Boniface, like, and even my dad and his brothers, if they chose to, could be buried in Winnipeg, but they chose not to. They just, they're buried in their home cities. But, to think that someone, we got people running around and trying to use a part of history to correlate to their families, and they're not, to propagate some type of narrative, I don't know, and then criticize and call everybody else racists and all this stuff. I mean, Queenie needs to chill out, because she's caused a lot of problems for the freedom movement. A lot of us don't even want her around us anymore, because we're your friend. She shows up at the Axe Attacks protests, and she's like trying to pick a fight with the cops. And we're like, no, man, we're just here collectively as a community to show support for our guys in jail and the carbon tax, and be peaceful, right? Just as a sense of community. Exactly. Axe the tax. There you go, bro. So, and you were there, and I didn't show up because I
wasn't actually in the ditch there, but
yeah, I know. I seen the videos.
Was covering it. And Queenie was live on there, and that's how she built up her channel to get her 20,000 subs or something by
she
hanging out
off the rest of us. And also she paid for subs. Don't forget that, because I actually went through, like, I have an app where I can look at your subs. I can't follow them, but I can see who all subbed you. And I mean, she had so many fake accounts, and I think she lost her account because she was buying subs, because that's a no-no with YouTube. But she used the Freedom Convoy movement and the Freedom Movement to try and piggyback to get followers on her socials and make herself a content creator. Like, that's fine. Okay, whatever. But the thing is don't go out and lie about people and say something that's not true. She's been doing this. And then she even went down to get reinforcements from Ontario, where, like, when I was a kid, okay, like many families can say this, like, I didn't have a good upbringing with my family. So I had a very violent upbringing. And my cousins, who are pure blood First Nations, the Roy family, they're like, Marie's like, hey Jay, you know what? I'm going to get you out of your home, and we're going to take you, and we're going to put you on you're going to stay in Wikwemikong for a bit. We're going to deal with this because your dad's beating your mom up, your dad's beating you up, and I was black and blue when this happened to me. So my auntie, so she brings me to Wikwemikong, and I started learning my traditions as First Nations and with my own family. So I lived there for 3 years. I got adopted in on the membership, and I was living there for 3 years with Roger and John and Jason and Marie and that. And so anyways, I'm watching this live with this 420 guy that Queenie's on there. This was last week. And this guy's like trying to tell all his viewers that I'm full of shit and all this stuff. And I'm like, buddy, you don't even know me, man. I've never met you in my life. You've never been around my circle. You don't even know my family.
Hang on. Why was he talking to you in the first place? Were you in their chat or something?
No, I went in the chat, and I was just like, because I thought his chat was cool. And I said, hey, everybody, how's it going? And Queenie's like, yeah, here's LaFauci. And then she started mouthing off. So of course I reacted, right? Like, okay there, Queenie, like, shut up. Like, come on. And then next thing you know, I guess these were her friends. And then they just started spewing bullshit. And I'm like, oh, wow. Like, seriously? So I was like, I got fed up, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to profile every one of them because they're all fakes. All of them. They're fakes. That's what they do. We have a portion of people in our collective right now that will hijack anything to make it their narrative and try to subdue or subvert the opposition, right? That's what they do. So my thing is I'm all about truth and trying to be as accurate to the truth as possible. But when you start coming after me on my family bloodline and shit, and not knowing, and then you saying that you're part of my family when you're not, like, so the truth is, folks, if Queenie's going around saying that she's part of the Red River battle or nothing, no, she's not. She's half Cree for one, and she's half white for two. So she's not a pure native. She's Métis, and she has nothing to do with the Red River lineage at all whatsoever. It's not even in the registry. Her family's name is not in the registry at all. And she says she's a Goulet, but she doesn't have a Goulet last name. The only reason why I have LaFace is I took my mom's last name. I could take my dad's last name anytime I want, but I didn't get to know my dad until I was 16, right? So I didn't know him until I was 16. And then I found out my history of my family and that. And I've been really prided on that because I grew up to learn my dad's tradition, my dad's family's values and stuff. So yeah, it's just unbelievable. And there's a history. So just to add some more context for Queenie on our bloodline, if she knows this, I'm going to put her to the test. I already know she's not related, but I'll put her to the test anyways. She would know that the men born on the Goulet side of the family, our middle names and our first names are key as a key thing of tradition with our family. So every kid born that's a male will carry the name Roger, Maurice, Leopold, Ezrayar, Paul, Stephen. There's a few others, but those are all the names that we have. So either we have the middle name of our heritage ancestry, or we have a first name. So my mom, she kept, she followed the family tradition and made sure that I had Roger in my name. Same thing with my son. All my uncles, all their kids, they're either named Maurice, Leopold, or whatever, like it's all part of our tradition and the structure of our family name, right? So if she knew anything about our family, she would have said that to me. She never once mentioned that to me. And just with her barrage of hate and shit, I just like, you know what, man, if you're going to do that, I'm just going to fact check you. And I did. So
yeah. So,
so
do you think that she's a good representative for the quote native community?
Absolutely not. She can't contain her anger. Like you could trigger her, or I think it's when she doesn't have weed, because that's a side effect of somebody who smokes a lot of weed. You don't have weed, you start getting antsy and getting upset and grumpy and shit. But she actually loses her shit. So how can you have somebody like that to represent anybody, right? If you can't control yourself, like you have to have a level, like a level of professionalism and self-ethics to reserve and contain your aggressive behavior. And her, absolutely not. She is 100% aggressive when she loses her shit. And I mean, she gets really, really vulgar. Like, I mean, putrid vulgar. It's crazy. So no, she shouldn't be doing it. Like if she wants to be an activist, whatever, I don't care. I'm not going to stop her from doing anything. I don't care what she does. But asking me that question, absolutely not. She's not a leader. She's a follower and a bullshitter. We can't have that.
Yeah.
In
Yeah, look at the
activism.
chat. Look at the chat there. Willie says she's an awful representative of Métis culture.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely she is. I mean, anybody who's she doesn't even, and this is another thing, Tommy, okay? So those of us who are actually true to our Métis culture and our traditions can speak Michif. Like I can speak Michif. That's Métis French, right? There's two different types of French. There's the traditional French that you're taught in schools here in Canada that is brought down by Quebec and that. But then there's the Métis Michif French, which is a slang French. It's they call it in Quebec, they call it Sherbrooke French. But those of us who know how to speak it fluently can speak it, and I speak it absolutely fluently. So there was a day where I was talking to Queenie, and I said something to her in Michif, and she just looked at me, didn't know what the hell I was saying. So that tells me that most Métis people I know the culture, the tradition, the song and dance, our oral history, and our language. Big difference.
Yeah, interesting. So moving on to the title, Alberta Independent Special. What's your take on Native people in Alberta? And there, I know you've gone to some reserves and talked to people and gotten signatures and things like that. What's your take on their take on Alberta independence? So let's say the majority of them.
Well, I will say this. So all the territories that I got kicked off Frog Lake. I got banned from there because they found out I went there and got signatures. But out of all the reserves I did
really,
go
to, why did they kick you out? What was that all about? I didn't hear about that.
So I went to Frog Lake to meet some elders, and they're fully in support of Alberta independence. They signed the petition, and Mama Cookham there, she's like, hey, we should take a picture together, right? And I was like, yeah, okay. So I took a picture and I used an AI filter on it just to give.
Who's Mama Cookham? Is she one of the mothers?
She's an elder of that. She's one of the elders. Yeah, she's one of the elders. Yeah. So her and her husband, they wanted to take a picture with me because she thought I was brave to come on her territory to come and get the signature, right? And I was like, okay, so I take a picture with her, and before I'd posted it on my phone, I have like AI filters just to brighten up the picture and that's what I did. Well, the next thing you know, I had some like these left-wing Aboriginal activists that started just tearing them down and tearing me down. Like, oh, the picture's fake, it's AI. Look at it. I'm like, what? And there was a flag in the background they were complaining about, and I'm like, that flag was made by their grandson at one of the during they had a thing at school where they were making flags and stuff, and all the kids made different flags. So this flag that the kid made, well, they have it hanging on their wall. It's just they love their grandson, and I thought that would be a cool backdrop to take a picture because it looked almost like a Mohawk, but it was like Mohawk Cree. It was like a blended thing. The kid had a really good imagination, anyways. So they started going after that, saying it was AI. And then when we debunked that, then they start coming. They're just picking at it. Then I get a phone call from the two of them saying that members from their own reserve and the band went to their house because they identified them on the picture and started bullying them. Right? Their own. This is their own band members bullying people who want independence. So they asked me to take the picture down, and I did. And so I went and visited them again, right? And then when I left the reserve, I got a phone call from the chief. Don't ever come on my reserve, or I'm gonna call the police on you. You're gonna get a no trespassing, and we'll bring it to court and all this shit. And I'm like, whatever, fine. So I started going to all the other reserves, but every reserve that I went to, majority of people want independence. When we sit at growing up with First Nations, okay, sitting at the supper table, we always talked about that.
What was your take on why do the natives on the reserves want independence?
It's a historic thing, man. It's been brought down generations ever since they took the lands. I mean, they were, when you look at the treaty agreements that the Crown says, the story the Crown says, it's not the story that the oral history tells us. So they didn't like the way they were put into reservations. They weren't, and then before, when the reservations were first created, you had to have an ID card to leave the reservation, and you had to be signed off by the Crown representative. You couldn't leave the reserve. You were pretty much in a POW camp is what it was. And that's changed over the years, right? So all the history with trying to eradicate their culture, eradicate their language, their teachings, their dance. I mean, even the sun dance, okay, which is a traditional indigenous dance for tribes, it was banned in Canada. The federal government banned the sun dance. So
well, they wanted to retrain the natives,
exactly,
take their culture away and bring them into the white man's culture, basically.
Yeah, it's to try and sophisticate them to the
bring
Canadian
them into the schools. That's what the whole
but there's also a history with that too,
though.
But the residential, so that's also a twisted narrative too. So when the residential schools were introduced, okay, there was a lot of territories that supported them, and there's a different history told about that. Like my uncles were in residential schools, and they tell me that, yes, they would be disciplined only if they acted up and did something wrong. Other than that, they enjoyed going to the school. It was good teaching. They had good sports program, and they liked it. And I've heard this from other First Nations people too. Now, I'm not saying that all the schools were good. We have incidents where there's incidents that happen at some of these schools, but then the graves, this is where the history from our side is told. People have amnesia. It's like the collective of Canada and the government knows, but the collective of Canada has amnesia, because when the residential schools were being introduced, we had what was it, tuberculosis outbreak that was gone rampant across the country in the tribes. So a lot of people died, right? And a lot of kids died from tuberculosis. I mean, that's why the Indian school was built here in Alberta, which was another atrocity. But I mean, when you look at all that, it wasn't because of abuse that these kids were dying. It was because of tuberculosis and polio, right?
Natural causes,
right? That the government didn't have treatment for. So, that's where we have a completely twisted narrative that's been fed to us since 2014, and it's a biased narrative. But if you go back a little bit and you look up old documentaries, you can pull one from CBC from 1979. That documentary, they're talking about the residential schools, and everybody that was part of the residential schools testimony, First Nations, were telling everybody how they liked it, how the residential schools helped their reserves. And so when I asked my family and folks, like when I was living on res, I asked about this, and they said we only had a problem with the church. Yes, we had a problem with the state, the way they were taking away our culture and restricting us from going, but the problem more was with the church. So in Wikwemikong, where I grew up, the members there was a Jesuit church that was abusing, the priests were abusing the kids, and it was sexual abuse and stuff. And the members, it wasn't a question. They just went up and burnt the church down and kicked off the church off the reserve. And that is one of the only unceded territories in Canada still to this day that never relinquished any rights. So they've been self-sustained. They don't take much money from the feds anymore. And I mean, they're starting to do good. But when I was living there, it was bad. It was bad, man. The feds were
relating to Alberta here with your visiting the reserves, like the idea, or the what's being brainwashed into us, not being on the reserve and not really seeing what's going on there, is that the money that's being sent to the reserves or spent by the federal government or given to the reserves, the perception is that the chiefs get an awful lot of that money, have dibs to it, and it doesn't trickle down to the people that are on the reserves. Are you hearing that?
That's happening. There's misallocations of millions of dollars from these paid off chiefs. Like, water treatment plant that was $127 million unaccounted for. No, they can't even explain where the money went. No water treatment facility, right? There was funds going to medical centers that were supposed to be built on First Nations that the chief again abused and took, and they never built it, right? So these chiefs are becoming more prone to fraud and corruption and greed. Even where I was living, I watched we all watched it. The chiefs, they're getting all this funding from the feds at the time, build themselves brand new houses, brand new trucks, brand new quads, brand new skidoos, and everybody else is suffering, right? We're like, and then all of a sudden it created a two-class tiered system within the reservation. where you had the chief and some band councils. They're driving around with fancy stuff, and the rest of us are like having to take siding off the freaking house to burn firewood. Like, it was absolutely insane. I actually want to comment on something here because I was going through the comments. Susan K, I love this one. What happened to the photo of Jason LaFosse and his girlfriend dressed as Nazis go? Well, I'm going to tell you something. That was never me, Susan. That was Derek Rock and his wife, who owned Creator's Choice cannabis shop from Wanapate First Nations. It was them that were dressed up as that, and I've been getting fed the blame for this. I'd never dressed up. There's no photos of me, but that's who it was. Just to clarify, so we can get the truth out, because people like this.
Where is that misinformation being spread?
Right in my chat. It's been going on for a couple years. Susan.
But is it on a website? Is it on like antihate.ca or something?
Oh, actually, yes, there is.
Where are people getting that stuff from?
Yes, there was. Antiracist.com.
Because I know that antihate.ca is run by Antifa, and they basically spread a lot of misinformation to make right-wing people in Canada look bad.
Oh, absolutely. Well, that's what they try to do to me, right? So I'm going to show you guys. Give me a second. I'll bring it up.
They smear you. And the left-wing people, go over to those sites, anti-hate, whatever, and then they pull up the garbage that's on there, and they believe that it's true, and most of that stuff on there is all BS. It's all misinformation. So, yeah, I can imagine that you've probably been taken the task by those people.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's here it is. Let's see if they took it down to wow. Give me a second.
Yeah, while you look at that, so because we've gone to First Nations reserves in Alberta, and with Alberta here, we're talking about Alberta independence. What kind of things are you finding that the people that are on the reserves are talking about that they see as being a potential benefit if Alberta becomes independent? What would that do to the reserves, the people on the reserves, and the native people in Alberta? What are the benefits with being independent?
They believe that it's going to start with consultation for a new agreement. That's what they're seeking. They want a better deal with Alberta, and they know that they can't change things overnight, but they don't like the way the feds have been manipulating their chiefs and their band councils. So a lot of folks feel that if we can eliminate the federal government in this endeavor, that will take away a lot of corruption from the reserves, because Alberta will set new mandates, right, and a new agreement. They feel that we could work collectively and streamline a lot better with our people here in Alberta versus how it's been, back and forth and restrictive. And at the same time, it'll give them more freedom to deal with the oil and gas sector, because a lot of these territories, we have some of them here in Alberta where they refuse to work with the oil and gas industry, but it's a small group of people that are speaking for them, for everybody else that are opposed. So they're just doing it on their own whim. So what you're seeing those reservations that are just falling behind because they're not being able to take benefit to industry that they could bring into their own reservations. And on top of that, what they do is they've explained to me when it comes to a partnership with the oil and gas, and how they're not able to get a partnership with them, is the fact that the federal government manipulates and interferes, and then sends in their environmentalists, their environmental activists who are aligned with left-wing First Nations radicals to basically prevent them from doing anything. So regardless if it's oil and gas, or if it's mining or logging or anything that could benefit their people, they're being prevented by doing that, because the federal government keeps intervening with these specialized groups, right? So they feel that once that's gone, it'll give them a lot more freedom to make decisions and be able to be part of the collective.
So they'll have a better deal with Alberta independence, and they're getting within Confederation.
Exactly. And the concession they want, is they want full sovereignty.
So why is it that the chiefs, you had the chief of the Sturgeon band bring up this court case to stop the signatures from being counted, right? And that right now is like in the court system where a leftist judge appointed by Eastern Canada, a liberal judge, ended up going, yeah, you have to consult with the natives first before we even count any signatures. Like, why did the chiefs band together and oppose independence?
Okay, so out of all the chiefs in Alberta, there's 48, right? And only 12 are against. I was told this by Chief Cody Thomas. So there's an issue now where some mistakes have been made along the way from our side, and those are, and I'm not going to downplay those, because I was part of. So what happened was last year, I was contacted by some of the chiefs who said to me, "Look, if you guys are going to go forward with this, we want to sit down with some of your guys." Okay.
Weren't they invited? Was there not like an invitation to
they
all of the
they were
chiefs
invited
to come
to, yeah,
down and to
yes, I have the text messages on my phone still. So I was one of the first for the first meeting. So what happened was because Daniel Smith was moving with the Alberta Next panel and stuff, I was contacted by a president of one of the CAs for the UCP, who said to me, "Jay, we know you're talking to the chiefs. We're going to give you the ability to give them an open invitation to this meeting, because this meeting you had to pay for it, whatever. They were waiving all the fees so they could just have them come and participate." So I'm back and forth with Cody, okay, from Enoch Cree Nations, and I said to him, "Okay, look at like the premier's
pretty big band, pretty wealthy band. They've got the casino.
Oh yeah, they're doing good." So I told Cody, I'm like, "Cody, like this is a situation. The UCP is inviting you and your other friends. Like there was 4 other chiefs." I said, "to this thing, and everything's covered. They just want you to show up, and maybe it could start some dialogue." And at first he was like, "Well, okay, I'll talk to my guy." And then I got a message back, "We'll show up if we feel like it." That's exactly what I got out of it. Okay. So I relayed that message back to the UCP and said, "This is the response." And I showed them, and they never showed up. And then I heard that Mitch and them, they did send invites out to the chiefs. And again, the chiefs ignored it and didn't show up. Like they just, so then I get told from Cody over at Enoch, he's telling me, he's like, "Well, there's only 12 of us that are against it, and the rest are, So I'm like, "Well, what's the problem?" So we did have a discussion about it.
All you need is one chief, the sturgeon chief, to be against it and to actually put up a court injunction or try to get it.
So that whole injunction is actually illegal to begin with, because duty to consult only happens at the Constitutional Convention level. So a petition, you don't need to consult with anybody.
Not at the signature and submitting the signatures to Elections Alberta and having them actually enumerated, counted. Like,
exactly.
How can it stop that?
Exactly. So now, well, there's a way to stop it. So that's why the premier did what she did, because she had to find a way to override the court, because she knew, and everybody else knows, that court judge was biased, and he didn't even read the law. He just came up with his own decision, right? And that you can clearly see that based on the rule of law. So she decided she's going to run. The only way she could do this is one of 2 ways. She can call an actual binding referendum by using Section 1 of the Referendum Act and then pissing everybody off. Or she could do it the way she did it to appease everybody as a true democratic process, non-binding, to create a secondary referendum question later on as a binding question. So that's what she did. And so I see what she did here. Now, the argument in court now...
What do you think about that decision by
I think
Danielle
it's
Smith?
fair. I actually think it's fair. I think she appeased both sides.
What else could she do other than say, we're just going to call off until the court...
well, she could have waited.
Because they appealed the court decision, right?
Exactly.
And that appeal
So
process is going to take time.
Exactly. And how it would have played out if she wouldn't have did nothing. Okay, so this is exactly how it would have played out. The Stay Free Alberta petition would have been dragged on in court, allowing Forever Canadian to have a process right to the point first. So that would have been favoring one side only. That's what they were trying to do. That's what the feds tried to do. But Daniel was smarter. So what she did is she had 2 options. She could either nil out the Forever Canadian petition by just calling a referendum under Section 1 of the Referendum Act and saying screw you to Lukasik and all those people who signed. But instead, what she did is she found a medium. So she exercised as an order in council to appease both sides. That's what she did. So it's a true form of democracy. She respected both sides and her own Alberta Next panel, her referendum questions. So it was fair. But how do we challenge the injunction? Well, so there's some of us who've been working on finding a means to getting that out of there if it was challenged at the Supreme Court. So we actually looked up, there's 3 case files in BC where the First Nations people went to the Supreme Court for a land claim based on the fact that they proved that their treaties were fraudulently obtained. And the courts agreed to this, right? So this is in the Supreme Court of Canada, by the way. So you have 3 precedents stating that the treaties themselves are fraudulent because of how the ceremonial process of getting the signatures. What the Crown did for those treaties was the Crown wrote X's on the treaty themselves, and in order to verify and to certify the signature, they ran a ceremony where the First Nations representative, which was the chief or clansman, would go in and touch the pen. They didn't sign nothing; they just touched the pen. But then in that court file, and one of the other court files, the oral history and testimony was approved as a witness testimony, and stated that some of these individuals weren't even present during the signing of these treaties. So the courts rendered in favor of the First Nations, gave them their land back, and based on the fact that those treaties were fraudulent. So now, how does that work for us? Well, if they were to take those 3 precedents and bring it to the challenge of that injunction in the Supreme Court of Canada, it would make the treaties null and void. It removes the veto power from the First Nations and forces First Nations to go back to a convention to negotiate new treaties based on modern principles. That's exactly what would happen. So I started talking about this the last couple of weeks. I presented it to a few people in the Stay Free Alberta, upper, and I said, "Look, guys, we can actually do this because they did it before. So they did it to favor themselves. Now we can do it to favor ourselves, but basically highlight the fact that yes, the treaties were obtained illegally. So if the treaties are illegal under the Vienna Convention, which has clear 5 regulations that if you can prove a treaty was fraudulent, automatically they're not worth anything. So then you have to go to an agreement, right? You have to renegotiate the treaty. Yeah. So that's where we're at with this. So that's what I hope could happen to eliminate this injunction, but it doesn't matter anymore. We still got what we wanted.
I think the injunction will be eliminated if it, if the appeal process goes through and you just determine that the judge was wrong in making that kind of a decision, and that it shouldn't even have involved consultation at this point. We're at the point of just plain submitting signatures and getting the signatures verified, and that's what they've put a kibosh to. They've stopped that.
Yeah. But anyways, I got to kill the show. I got to go meet with some folks. And if you want to do another show, Tommy, we should schedule one up there this week. And maybe I'll come on your show or we'll do the same. But
do like a 2-hour show. Say, hey, okay, we're going to do just 2 hours. That's it. And at the end of the show, that's going to be it. We've been kind of dragging on here for a long time.
Yeah, I know. I've been out for 3 hours.
We haven't even gotten to stuff like, Danielle Smith has come up with her idea that it's going to cost us $400 billion to separate, which is a phenomenal number. I don't know where she picked that number from, and how we're going to.
Well, I seen the breakdown of it, and I don't agree with the how much the cost is. I think it might be half of that, but yes, like if Alberta's successful to vote to separate, it's going to cost us no matter what. And that's not costing us.
Absolutely.
It's not a payout. It's more or less on reinvestment in how we do things. So we're going to have
because just look at it. Even with something like I heard that with the pension system that you've got 2,000 people in Ottawa that are overseeing the pension plan, the CPP, right? Yeah. Just think of how many jobs that you can eliminate if you bring that home to Alberta. The overhead that we're paying for all, we're like, oh, you have so many services that you're receiving from Canada. No, it's money going out to them. The overhead is completely phenomenal with the number of workers that it's taking to oversee all this stuff. They're making like bad decisions. For example, they're investing pension plan money in woke type of businesses, net zero businesses and stuff like that are barely returning any money to the plan, just like really poor investing. All kind of things like that are going on, that we could actually recover that money, bring that money home, bring those jobs back to Alberta, right? Like even the RCMP, how much money are we actually spending for RCMP that's going to all of the overhead back in Ottawa, right, before the money even comes back to us with the services that we're getting from the RCMP? We're overspending for every one of those services that we're getting from Ottawa, and we can absolutely do it better at home. Sure, there's a money, that overhead that you have to spend in order to get it going, but the amount of savings over time will be absolutely phenomenal.
Oh, absolutely. That's what I tell people. Like, we're going to pay up front, yes, to start for the first couple of years, but the money that we're going to be making off royalties from our oil and gas sector is going to make Alberta rich real quick, because there's no more federal oversight, right? The other thing too is, speaking about the RCMP and cost overruns, we have, what was it? There's 2 wrecking yards in Alberta full of Alberta RCMP vehicles that could have been reassigned to, maybe, they could have fixed them up, sold them, make some money back, but they're sitting in wrecking yards right now. So I mean, that's,
because they don't want to sell them, because they don't want to sell them. Citizens driving old RCMP cars and whatever. Right?
Like, it's just so ridiculous. But anyways, I got to let you guys all go. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, and thanks for Tommy for coming on the show. We'll do this again.
Yeah, great. Nice
talking
to you.
Don't forget to subscribe to Tommy Temper on YouTube, and subscribe to Alberta Radio on YouTube as well. And have yourselves a beautiful, blessed day. God bless Alberta. Let's go.
Thanks a lot for watching us. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you.